Everybody, today we're very, very excited about these two guests, Danielle and Jeremy Stevens. Why are we excited? Other than the fact that these two entrepreneurs are very well known, you know, having spanned corporate careers, which are, again, you're going to give us a little bit of
It's TV show too, so
right? We've got very well known people here, but the most exciting part is, you know, I know Danielle from BNI, and she's always the most engaging person, easy to talk to, always helpful. And when we started this, we were looking for a time where we could bring on vegans, right? Again, it's not an ideology or a mindset that I'm going to follow, but that's a personal choice. But I feel that there's a lot of people out there that want to understand more without us going into, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong.
Sure.
Let's dive into what you guys do, how you do it. So let's talk about Danielle, right? You did your 20-year corporate career, 13 years at SiriusXM.
Yes.
Co-run Vine Vegan and Bella Vita Designs, Hawaiian-born, Army-raised.
Hawaiian-born.
My dad was stationed in Honolulu. I was born in that pink hospital you might see if you fly into Honolulu in Triple Air. I was only there a year, and then we left, and I've never been back. So it's kind of like a brag that I have, but it's actually kind of lame because I haven't been back since I was a baby.
You were still born there, it's okay.
I was still born there.
Yeah.
In the same breath, you've kind of been all over the place, right? So as an Army kid, you were stationed in Germany as far as I understand as well?
Germany and Belgium. That's where I spent most of my youth, and then my parents separated like middle school age, and then we came to Florida.
Okay, so most of your life you spent in Florida.
No, actually, I was in Florida for a couple of years, and then my dad ended up finishing up his career at the Pentagon in DC. Okay. And so when I graduated high school, I moved to DC in thinking that I might go to college there. I did not end up doing that, and then I lived there for almost 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I spent most of my life in Northern Virginia, and we've been here about 10 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Jeremy is a co-owner of both Vine Vegan and Bella Vita Designs, and a very, very well-decorated veteran.
Well, I wouldn't say well decorated, but I've been all over Iraq. Let's put it that way.
That's decorated. You've served the country. You've done your time. That to me is you're decorated. So regardless of how many medals you have.
Army? What branch?
I was in the airborne.
Yes.
82nd.
Nice.
Yep. But I spent my time in Iraq as a contractor, as a fireman over there for many years, way back in the day, from 2007 to 2013.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Brilliant. And at this point you come down from Michigan.
Yeah. I left Michigan when I joined the service, right out of high school back in 91. I never went back. Michigan is not a place, it's cold, it's dreary, there's not a lot of economy there. And that took me to North Carolina, I love North Carolina. That's where I spent the majority of my life until I went to Iraq and then ended up in Virginia where I met this wonderful woman.
And then I moved him to Florida. He never even visited here before.
That's always a good thing. Same with us. The first place was when we left Canada. It was like Florida. It was the place we go.
Yes.
And you are the design mind behind Vine Vegan, the look, the feel.
Yes. Yes. I designed it all. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I designed the space. I mean, she kind of decorated, I guess, with the color scheme.
My sister is an interior designer in South America. She designs like hotels in the Galapagos Islands, and she's the personal interior designer to the wife of the president of Ecuador. She's kind of a big deal.
Wow.
And so through FaceTime and snapshots on phone, she helped me with the aesthetic look in Vine Vegan.
That's good.
Jeremy did all the functionality, and then she helped me make it look pretty. Yeah, for sure.
It's a good looking restaurant.
Thank you.
It used to be a warehouse type store for a
There was
kitchen
a
or something?
kitchen store called the Rolling Pin that was
That's right.
family owned.
That's right.
They were there almost 20 years in a much bigger space. It was almost 5,000 square feet. It was huge. They sold, kitchen stuff for, not for restaurants.
You would never know.
people.
I mean, because I've been in a restaurant, it looks completely different than what it used to be.
Most people that are from Brandon or this area, they know the Rolling Pin pretty well. So when they come in, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so different.
It is totally different. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think around 2020, you guys embraced veganism.
Yes. Yes. It was so I lost my dad in October of 2019 to heart disease and a myriad of other medical problems. And it was really tough. You know, my family tended to live into their 90s, and I lost my dad. He was 72. And it was a really hard pill to swallow. I felt like I'd been robbed of 20 years of my dad. I was very, very close to him. So that December, a friend of ours had told us about a documentary on Netflix called The Game Changers. And it was the first like vegan focused, anything I'd ever watched documentary that wasn't all scaring you about how animals are treated in this country that no one wants to watch or be aware of. It was more about health. And it was like, there are these NFL players that are vegan. How could that possibly be? So I actually refused to watch it because I heard at the end of it, you would go vegan. And I was like, I'm not doing that. That sounds so boring. I'm not interested in eating kale the rest of my life. No way. I had no idea. So Jeremy watched it on a weekend that I was away. And he was like, honey, we have to go vegan. And I was like, oh, you fell for it. What a sucker.
Well, the documentary's focus is centered around athletes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my entire life, I've been in that space of always wanting to be healthy and eat healthy and fit and work out. And so anytime something I could educate myself on something different, I was always interested in learning about that. And so I was flipping through Netflix and I saw that that documentary while she was gone. Like, well, let me watch this.
I'll watch it without her.
I'll watch it without. And it was so fascinating.
good, yeah.
The athletes, they compared the athletes of vegans to non-vegan athletes. It was just fascinating to me. So
Even like, you know, how their blood looks under a microscope and all this crazy. It's a very, very fascinating study. So he called me. I talked to him that night and he said, I watched that documentary and we have to go vegan. I was like, man, you're a sucker. And he's like, no, it wasn't like about this horrible animal agriculture like the other ones were that we, you know, didn't watch.
It's anecdotal. It's based on person.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to dip our toe in it.
Yeah. And so he said, you know, it could make us healthier. I mean, we will live longer. And then that was like, I was 2 months raw from my dad passing away. So it really got my attention. So I got home that Sunday.
Health at that point, though. Like, what would you guys?
So I'm 4'11" and I weighed about 200 pounds at the time.
Okay.
I was never, I mean, I might be interested in what I was eating if I thought maybe my pants were tight, and then I would watch what I was eating, lose enough weight so they weren't tight, and then they would get tight again a couple months later.
Yeah.
I never really had any workout regime I was following. I never let myself suffer through missing out on a meal, that's for sure. So, so we watched this. I watched it when I got back home, and I was like, "Oh man, this is fascinating. We could try it." But it was almost Christmas time. It was like middle of December.
Yeah.
So I said, "Let's get through the holidays." And we were going to be going on vacation with our kids, and I had like just gone to Costco and spent, you know, $1 bajillion on chicken and steak and yada yada. So we get back from vacation on January the 1st. That morning, we never eat fast food, but it was a road trip, right? So we ate like McDonald's breakfast sandwiches, which are disgusting, but also delicious. That's the last non-vegan meal we ever had in our lives.
Wow.
We got home that day, and Netflix said, since you watched The Game Changers, would you like to watch What the Health? And I was like, oh, let's watch this one too. When it was over, I watched around our house, and I clicked everything that was food that was made from an animal, and I donated it. I went on some free thing on Facebook, and I said, come and pick up all this food. That night we had twigs and berries for dinner. It was a challenge at first. It totally felt like that. Like, oh my gosh, what are we going to eat? I have these beans that work, right? We were super uneducated about it. I had started some research, but hadn't really, it was the holidays, right? I was focused on celebrating with our kids. So, it was terrifying and challenging, and I wondered. We had 2 kids at home at the time. One was 10, one was 17, and they were like, "But we don't even like kale." And I was like, "It's okay. We want to kill girls, I promise."
They did not adopt it very well in the beginning.
Not in the beginning, no. And so I just started to do some research. You know, I went on Pinterest. I'm like, "What can I make my dinner for my family tonight? What do I have here?" I wish ChatGPT had been around back then, because I would have put like all the ingredients into it and would have told me what to make right away, which is something I do.
Yeah, can I make a side point to that really quick? It's funny you bring that up, because we've talked about this in past episodes where with all the tools and resources that are out there right now, if you want to be healthy,
Oh, gosh. It's
there's so many
easy.
free, easy resources and ChatGPT. You can, and I did it just to play with it, see what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 6'2", 240-pound male with 13% body fat. Give me a meal plan to help me lose 5% body fat, whatever it was that I wanted to do. It spit it out.
Yes.
Like it gives you exactly what you want.
And it's super accurate.
It's crazy. So I went through, this was a couple months ago. I took my phone. I didn't want to type it all. I opened a note and I pressed dictation and I just started to list all the things in my freezer, my fridge, my pantry. And I went like this, blah, 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 comma, blah, 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 comma, blah, 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 whatever. Then I took that note, I copied and pasted it and I put it in the ChatGPT and I said, give me 100 meal ideas where I would only have to buy fresh vegetables to complete it. 2 seconds later, I had 100 meals.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. So if I'd had that on January 1st, 2020, oh my gosh, it would have been nuts. It would have been great.
But there's also a factor of discipline in that because, and I can attest to that, I have tried every diet variation. And the funny thing is, I ended off on carnivore and for me it works. But and I'll explain why it works. But the interesting thing is my wife tried a vegan diet and for us, when you look at blood type, because I'm a very big believer in your blood type will dictate and you have to look at your numbers. And I'm O blood type. So if I eat too much carbohydrates, it has adverse effects on me. I have no good effects. When I do an elimination diet and I primarily eat good, and when I say good red meat, humanely treated, always, I'm a strict believer, if you are following a carnivore diet, if you eat animals, you have to be that person that is capable of hunting, skinning, and doing all of that yourself and being thankful for the sacrifice the animal gave to you.
Wow.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm a big believer that you have to know where your food comes from and you have to respect that fact.
I agree.
So in that, when we went over, my wife said to me, you know what, I'm going to try a vegan diet. And her blood type's AB. She started it, it went kind of okay for a bit, and we're very big believers in organic, stay away from processing. And she felt that it just didn't work for her body. So she's slowly incorporating it. She cannot eat near the amount of meat I eat.
Sure.
And I cannot eat near the amount of plant food she is. And it always highlights it to me is finding that discipline of changing as you guys did into a specific diet. You've gone from generally eating the North American diet.
Yes.
Right, whatever's available.
Whatever you
Let's
want.
just be honest, is the worst diet
It's the worst.
on earth.
Absolutely.
And then you move into this new, relatively new, veganism. Let's be honest, has been around for over 2,000 years.
Sure.
You can go
Mainstream very
definitely,
recently,
right?
but it's been around a long time.
I'm gonna dictate a timeline, and I recently learned this researching for this. So you've got Buddhists who advocate for not hurting anything else, right? You've got, in Asian culture, there's a lot of that in Asian culture, Japanese culture specifically. Then you go to Pythagoras, the mathematician who advocated 500 years before Christ, that you should not harm anything in how you live your life, right? And then you go to 1944, and the term vegan is coined, right? And you have the vegan societies now created. And as that's created, it takes quite a number of years for this to kind of form into society, but there's a slow growth, right? And I feel that growth was very organic and very well put out. There comes a point where I feel the same with keto diets, carnivorism, it gets picked up by the corporate world.
Oh,
And they realize,
It's not propaganda.
you know what I mean? Now there's something to coin. And
Sure.
and I always find it fascinating when you speak to some people who don't take the time as you guys did in a time. If you think in 2019, 2020, this is not the easiest time. There's no, like you said,
remember, like 2 months after we went vegan, a whole big some right? Which we get to.
So-
Then I had all the time I needed to research.
So now you're going through this to kind of figure out, but it's not as easy as this is what you eat, because
No.
what happens is you're inundated with the corporate media, which is telling you this is the food you should eat, which always kind of lines you towards really bad foods.
Yep.
And it's the same. Keto, I remember people when keto diets came out, I think in the late 2000s, people coming to me, I'm going to be keto and healthy. Like, it doesn't mean health. Like,
No.
you need to look what you're putting in, because their idea was I can eat as much bacon, sausage,
Cream,
all the-
butter,
all these-
yeah.
all the-
We did
all
that.
the- These
Oh, yeah.
keto bars, which are terrible with 500 ingredients, and they're feeding themselves and they don't understand why they're more unhealthy.
Sure.
So talk me through your process of research, because, you're now going to figure out what you can eat. Now, vegan products are all over the place.
Yes.
But like every other product,
Yep.
you have to read the label.
Of course.
How was that process?
So
Well, I'll tell you,
we didn't do that.
we made a lot of mistakes
So many mistakes.
because
And we did the processed food
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was I was raised by a woman from England and a man from South America, where we had a protein, a veg, and a carb on our plate for dinner every night.
Same in South Africa.
Yeah. And so I was really accustomed to making my family that same dinner. And Jeremy was as well. And so I was like, oh, it's easy. I just take the meat protein off and I'll put a different protein there. Well, what will that be? And in the beginning, it was Impossible Burgers and frozen Guardian fake chicken and, junk, processed junk.
Yes.
And so in the beginning, we are very impulsive isn't the word, but we're very like black or white. Like we weren't going to do gray for a year.
Yeah.
We were just going to jump right in, and that's what we went vegan that day. Like I said, that day, and that was that.
Never went back.
And we never. And it was like, let's try this for a few months, and then we just never went back. And we're 5+ years in.
The plan was we're going to do for a week, see how we feel.
Yeah, and then it was like, what? It's they do this thing. There's a movement called Veganuary. Like we'll do it for January for the month.
Yeah.
So then it was a month, and then it was like, holy shit, I feel great.
Okay.
I'm sleeping better. My stomach doesn't hurt.
Changes.
Immediate. Like
Her asthma.
my asthma went away. My little dull headache I had every day went away.
Wow.
My entire life I have suffered from incurable hay fever, as my mom would call it, but allergies, right? I always sneeze. I mean, I sneezed 100 times in a row a day. It was crazy. And that's even with pills, shots, allergy tests, blah, blah. I haven't taken an allergy pill in 5 years. All my allergies gone. All my asthma gone. Every now and then when I get a cold, I might get a little wheezing, but I think most people do. So I just immediately felt better, and I knew that we were onto something. Is that going to be the case for everybody? Maybe not. I've heard people say, oh, I followed a vegan diet and I didn't feel well. I lost weight. I gained weight. I felt sluggish. And I think it has a lot to do with your blood type. It has a lot to do with what you're eating, of course, if you're doing proper research. So in the beginning, we did not research. I just replaced that meat with a fake meat, which was not the way. And I still follow that horrible North American diet of I'm going to eat what's convenient, just happens to not have
As long as
animals
it's
in it.
vegan, yeah.
Right, as long as it's vegan. And then I gained weight.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, the calories in a vegan chocolate chip cookie, brace yourselves, same calories in a non-vegan chocolate chip cookie. It's the same.
And how many people don't realize? I think
I'm eating vegan, so it's so healthy.
Oh, no. You can be a fat
I don't
vegan.
know.
You're gonna be fat vegan.
Vegan restaurant, and I stand at the register, and every day, let me have the patty melt, which is not good for you in the grand scheme of life. Now, are you
A
saving?
Big Mac.
It tastes good.
It's delicious. It's so good.
I've had.
It's got a lot of calories, a lot of fat. Now, are you staying away from? There's different saturated fats in a vegan patty melt than there is in the one with beef. So, is it healthier? You could twist it that way, sure. But it still has a lot of calories, a lot of fat, and it doesn't have much nutritional value to it.
and processing in regards to get it
Processing, which
right.
we'll talk about too, right? And so they say, I'm trying to eat healthy, so let me have that patty melt and the French fries. Cool. And I just like, sure, take your $20, no problem.
Yep.
I don't want to disagree with them. I have a ton of very healthy things on my menu too that stay away from oils, that aren't fried, that aren't processed, that are fresh. And they get ordered 20% of the time, while the other things get ordered 80% of the time because everyone follows this diet you've mentioned, right? Because it's easy and it's convenient, and boy, does it taste good.
And there's the ideology factor, right?
Sure.
I always find anybody and the first time I experienced it was with keto diets.
Yes.
Right. Because everybody's on keto.
Oh, we did it.
I'm better than you because I do keto.
Oh,
Right? As
gosh.
if somehow you've magically unlocked a magic pill to do something. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then
I've never been more angry than I was on a keto diet. I need a carb to have smile once a day.
your body is different to my body, right?
needs
You need carbs.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
Anytime you reintroduce a new diet, it's going to change only for a very specific period of time. Our bodies are
They're so
amazing
smart.
at
Adaptive.
Oh, my God. So
and
smart.
maintaining equilibrium.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what diet you pursue, you will see results, but they're only temporary.
Yes.
We did the keto diet. Yeah, we both lost a lot.
Oh, tons of weight.
But
There's a minute you smell a piece of bread and all comes back.
It's not sustainable. As soon as you go back to eating things that you like, because if you deprive yourself, you're depriving yourself, and you can't deprive yourself.
Yes,
you need to find the happy medium.
Right.
So
like this chocolate chip cookie I mentioned, do I never eat them? Of course not. I love chocolate chip cookies, but I don't eat 9. I eat 1.
Right.
So you see
You know?
portion control
Yes,
and how,
portion
and how
control
to
is very
mitigate the
important.
process
Of
of the
course,
diet. Yes.
absolutely.
How long did it take you to figure out the diet? Like, what do you guys really? You said you made mistakes. Like, how long do you think till you know?
So 2 months later, the world shut down because of COVID, and suddenly all the restaurants were closed. And I was raised by non-Americans, and I'm not suggesting that other Americans don't do this, but it is less common that a typical American family has mom or dad cook dinner every night. Family sits down at the table and eats dinner because of our lifestyles, practices
Sports
and
whatever,
traffic. But we always eat dinner as a family every night.
We do too.
And so I love that. That's awesome. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
But even before we were vegan, we didn't eat a lot of processed stuff.
No, not necessarily.
It's not like most American families go to
No.
the freezer and have a freezer full.
It's kind of assumed by the fact that both of you are reasonably healthy. When I say we're not talking about the North American.
Right.
We're eating an
We were
average.
eating chicken nuggets
Yes.
for dinner every
Yeah,
night.
no.
By any means. We were eating lean proteins. We ate a lot
We're
of
self-conscious about what you put into
Yes, for sure. That didn't mean that I didn't have Chick-fil-A when I was watching, for sure. I did all those things too. But so COVID awarded me this time that I needed to conduct my research. COVID gave it to all of us, right? We all had this time. And so
We experimented a
we
lot.
experimented a ton. We grew a garden, which was really awesome. Jeremy built me this amazing 1,000 square foot garden outside. The most successful things I grew in there were eggplants. My kids one day were like, "Mommy, you serve us one more freaking eggplants." We had so many eggplants. I was giving them away felt like by the buckets.
That's funny.
And spices and herbs, and it was awesome. So, and tomatoes, all kinds of fun stuff. So, anyway, so we did a lot of research, and I would say we perfected it over that time that we were home, where all the restaurants were closed, say 7-8 months, something like that. I heard about a book called Proteinaholic. It's done by a guy named Dr. Garth Davis. It is a fascinating read. He's actually a plant-based bariatric doctor because so many people are very obsessed with protein in this country because of keto diets, because of like the Scarsdale diet back in the 90s and like all those diets that are just focused on never ever eating a carb. And it says, you should have this many grams of protein if you're this average size woman, an average size man. It doesn't take into account how much you work out, right? Protein is really important, as I'm sure you guys know more than me, when you are very active in the gym.
But it's very misunderstood, as you
And misunderstood big time. Like,
Yes.
women should have 140 grams of protein. Well, that's just not true for every woman at all. And so I read this fascinating book, Proteinaholic, and it said, like, if we could focus the obsession with fiber as opposed to protein, then we would all have healthier hearts in this country. We would all be digesting our food differently. We would be absorbing that protein that you do get and do need in a different way.
Which is way more important.
So much more important. The fiber discussion, I think, is so much more important to almost every American. So anyway, so that book really opened my eyes to how we needed to look at what was going to be on our plate for dinner every night. And so, we eat a lot of legumes. We don't deprive ourselves of things like rice. We're just not always eating white flour and bread. And I mean, we do eat those things,
You're
but not a lot.
still conscious not to eat the things that
That's
hurt,
right. That's right. But we're looking at whole grains, a lot of legumes and beans, lentils. Oh my gosh, lentils are so good for you. They're so good for you. They have so much protein in them. You could have your whole day. For me, for tiny little me, my whole day of protein I can get in two servings of lentils.
Wow.
And so, fresh vegetables, lots of green vegetables have tons of fiber, all the vitamins and minerals that you need.
So in the beginning,
Seeds to the top of something can fill your protein need for the day.
in the beginning, did you we do measured and calculated diets. Did you do that? Did you measure out what you needed and calculate on that?
Not even.
Well, even when we started, I didn't. I used to way back in the day, when I was in the fire department, there was an amateur bodybuilder who got me into that. You need to have, so he put me on a diet because I was trying to get bigger and leaner and all that stuff. And it worked. But then I was like, I'm not looking to be your size.
Yeah. You also don't want to. I've been bodybuilding my whole life, right? And I want to state something, and I want you to give me a reaction to it, because my experience is we had a good laugh in one of the earlier podcasts because again we talk about the extreme ideology side, which I think is absolute rubbish. You shouldn't do that. You should try and find middle ground because I think we should find a way to work with what works for us.
Sure.
And you'd have the one side which goes on and they go, but you can get all your protein from broccoli. No, you can't.
No,
It's 4 pounds of broccoli to get the same amount of that. Like however,
Some protein from broccoli.
but not what we're talking about.
Absorb your protein differently because you ate broccoli. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So what I found is when we talk about the protein argument, right? I think a lot of people don't truly. There's two things I find people don't understand. They don't understand hunger versus craving. Right, which I'm a big believer in water fasts. I've done water fasts for 3 to 4 days. Again, to
did one recently,
rewire your brain to make it understand the difference between what I'm craving and what I actually need to survive and sustain. And then I really feel it's important that people understand protein. There's a recent study that shows that regardless of the amount of protein you eat, your body is really efficient at producing or processing protein. Regardless of the amount, you can eat tons. The old stage where they said the kidney damage and liver damage is so minute.
Okay.
On the flip side, however, the amount of protein you need to sustain, right? Even a guy my size, I've gone down to less than 1 gram of protein per pound body weight. I've been fine. Right? I've been fine. I can attest it. I've changed diets. I've maintained weight, muscle mass. I've lost nothing. Your body is so super adaptable at changing in proteins. The question is, what protein works better for you? So for you, Jeremy, like going from someone who's done a bodybuilding diet, right? So it's the fish, the chicken, the rice.
I was eating a bag of chicken a day.
Exactly right.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner. It did work. Obviously, I thickened up. But at the same time, it wasn't sustainable for me because I was looking to be a bodybuilder. So when we became vegan, I noticed that when I was in the gym, I was working out harder and stronger than I ever had before. Just because the way the different types of aminos and everything I was getting, I wasn't burning out in the gym like I used to. I could keep going. It was amazing how that worked.
You had more fuel and you felt like
yes, I had more fuel. Even now, and I have a gym in my house now, but I work out harder now. Again, I only work out an hour a day. I don't need to do more.
There's no need for it.
I mean, I'm 52 years old. I mean, you and I, how old are you?
45 this year.
Yeah, see, I mean, for guys our age, I mean, I'm just not looking to spend that much time. I can work out hard. It's just recovery becomes more difficult.
I'll tell you, it's the biggest misconception about thinking spending 4 hours in the gym is any beneficial. You lose 40 minutes.
Horrendous.
Over 40 minutes, you actually start losing effectiveness of what you're doing because you can only actually get your muscle to a specific point. That's over that you're actually wasting your time.
Ronnie Coleman used to work out 1 hour a day.
Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, you speak to every major bodybuilder. Most people got that misconception from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because Arnold Schwarzenegger used to spend 4 hours in the gym. For him.
That's right. That's right.
Mike Menser back in the 70s had a routine where he got to the point that we worked out 1 day a week. And he looked fantastic. So again, everybody is different. Your proteins at that time. So what was your protein consumption? What was primarily your source of protein? And let's talk pre and post workout.
So I read somewhere, this is during our vegan journey, that and I can't remember where I read it, but we're so over consumed with how much protein we need that we don't actually need that much protein. True. So I don't pay attention to any proteins I take. I get enough protein from the diet. I don't pay attention to it. I don't. Now I do. I have a
in the beginning, I believe we were pretty conscious about it, but not necessarily like measuring.
Yeah, I don't follow. I need 1 gram of protein per body weight. I take. I do I have pea protein pea protein shake. That's the only thing I drink during the day. In the morning is I have my pea protein shake with like strawberries and bananas, and I take a bunch of vitamins. But that's it.
What's that? Is there a supplement you take that's got like creatine in it or amino acids?
I take creatine because
everyone should take creatine.
Especially non-meat eaters.
Yeah,
because
honestly, even if you eat meat, like meat does not. Creatine is the most underrated supplement we have. Women, men.
I was gonna say I don't take it. Maybe I should.
You should take it. Like,
I have some gummies.
it's really good. Like creatine is something that everybody should take.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's when I started taking, because I hadn't taken creatine for a long time. And when I started taking that, that's what really changed my workouts. But I've never paid attention to protein, not since that bodybuilder did all that for me. So now that protein shake I take in the morning is probably 30 grams, and the rest I get throughout the day with our dinner, which is
keep in mind that
the 30. I mean,
that
it's not a lot.
his wife cooks every day, owns a restaurant, and I make sure, and again, I'm not measuring,
Make sure it's fit.
but I'm making sure that we all are protein and fiber rich in all of our meals. So he doesn't kind of have to think about it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not measuring it out, and he's never said, make sure I have 30 grams of protein per bite. Or anything
And
like
I'm
that.
really now more concerned about the fiber that I take.
Yeah.
As
We're really conscientious.
I know that I'm getting more than enough protein. I can tell by my results from working out. I'm happy with my size. I mean, I'd like to be a little bit bigger, but I'm not looking.
You're not also going to put the work in to do it, right?
Yeah.
You make a good point, because and this is a question that I'm going to throw to both of you. I often find that as people are overly obsessed with protein intake, they're also overly obsessed with scale.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think what you should be doing is you should measure how do you feel first and foremost. If you feel good, stick to it.
Yes.
Right? Yep. The second thing you should do is you should have a look at how do you look to yourself, right? Do your clothes fit the weight they want? Those to me are better measurements than a scale. A scale can lie.
I actually had to have Jeremy remove the scale from our house because I became so obsessed with it. Because I did lose 85 pounds being a vegan. And again, I don't measure it, but being very conscientious about what I'm eating, my fiber intake, making sure that I had enough of it every day, my portions were better, just being smart about what I was eating, not eating 9 cookies, things like that. But I found myself weighing myself every single morning, and I'd never done that in my life. And it was like, oh God, I lost another 0.3 of a pound. Like, who cares?
We've become so obsessed with the scales.
Obsessed.
That we measure the scales of
Instead of how you fit in.
Right.
And instead of how you feel yourself.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So
right.
I'm going to be 48 this year, and I haven't weighed what I weigh right now, and I actually did weigh myself this morning. I haven't weighed this since probably the 8th grade, maybe 7th grade. I've always been an overweight person. And so I feel incredible. I feel like I've aged backwards over the last 10 years. About 6 months, maybe longer, because that was during COVID. I'm trying to remember when my doctor would actually see me and take my blood. Maybe it was a year. So he did our blood tests, and he said, if your blood looks like this until you're old, you will live to be 100.
Yes, that's
I am so shocked, because he was very against us going vegan.
Yeah, blood pressure.
I also had high blood pressure, but that was because I was fat.
I was pre-diabetic.
He was pre-diabetic. He was always around the 100, range or so for his
So I
sugars.
lost 40 pounds.
Yeah, he lost 40 pounds as well. And so, my triglycerides, my cholesterol, good and bad, everything was has maintained looking great.
Yes.
And, I go for a checkup with my doctor. I'm really, really diligent about that. So at least once a year. And I had changed his mind about veganism. He's very against it. You're going to be deficient in this, deficient in that. You got to watch your B12, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then the first blood test results, he ate his hat and he said, okay, tell me more. Tell me more. What are you doing? Conversation very similar.
Would you attribute to the research that you did to truly understand what you were getting yourself into and actually do it properly? Because I feel
We
there's a lot of
had to
mystery.
backpedal. Yes. Like in the beginning, we jumped in both feet and we did no research. And we just this has milk and we won't eat it.
Yeah.
Don't eat chicken anymore.
Which is not a bad start.
No.
Put a discipline point in, and
For
you
sure.
grew with it, right?
Right. And then we did more research. Then I got this crazy idea that I would open a restaurant. Then it became even more research because people want to know what they're putting in their body, how many calories are in it, how much protein's in it, what vitamins and nutrients they're getting. So the research became more, the portions became more, and understanding what was going into all of those things. And I really thought I would be a vegan restaurant. Like, I'll have a couple of fun, fattening things, but everyone's going to come here to eat something healthy. And again, that's not true. They're here to eat something fattening, and they're here to eat the cupcakes and the cookies and the burgers. Yes. And so I believe that you can't make any drastic change to anything in your life, including, of course, what you eat, without, if you jump into it without researching, okay, we did that, but then backpedal.
Yes.
You can't do everything on a whim forever. because you never know if you're doing any damage to yourself. You don't know. And that goes for carnivore, keto, anything you're doing, because it's not a one size fits all.
Yes.
What has worked for us may not ever work for you guys, or maybe would completely work for you guys if you tried it. Who knows? But you have to be conscientious about these changes that you're making. You just don't ever want to put yourself in a position where you're making yourself
I think what I have heard you both say is that like you took your health into your own hands and you made an effort, and like you were pre-diabetic, you had high blood pressure, and you made a change and you were intentional about what you did.
Yes.
And I can relate to like, my situation where you were talking about the scale. I went to the corporate world. I put on 50 pounds over a 10-year period. Yeah, so I got up to, I think my absolute worst ever was like 290 pounds.
Wow. I can't
So,
imagine that.
yeah. So, I mean, I hit it well because I'm a bigger guy.
Yeah, I hit mine well.
So, yeah, at least I told myself.
My hair always looked good,
So you get caught up in the scale though. So like even today where I'm sitting at 242 with probably realistically 11 or 12% body fat, I'm leaner and look better than I've ever looked. The scale tells me a story that
Messes with you, right?
it doesn't anymore, but it did for a long time. Where you're just like, well, I'm in college I was 225, but it was a softer 225
Sure.
than where I'm at today. And it's like, I feel good. I am proud of what I've accomplished and what I've been doing. But it's that scale you get so caught up. Some people just get caught up in that scale. That's a good point.
It never. I feel like these thoughts get ingrained in our minds because of
For sure.
the things that we see and hear our whole lives.
Society
And society dictates.
Jeremy, you were there. I mean, like you're measured by weight.
Yeah.
Weight is always a weight.
BMI, which is
Huge
misconception.
In every doctor's office, when you guys were kids,
Yeah.
you see something on the wall that says what you should weigh.
Yeah, right.
Range. So I'm 4'11". I'm supposed to weigh 110 pounds.
Which it's not
Which is crazy. I would never want to.
Right.
However, when I got on the scale this morning and it said 131.9, I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love weighing about 130. And then there's this second where I say, should I weigh 110? It's great. Like it still enters my mind.
That programming is ingrained into all of us.
Yeah.
But I
But you're
remind
healthy, you
myself
look great,
that I
feel
used to
great.
weigh
Yeah.
210. And so like I've come a long way, right?
Yeah.
210's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yes.
But it's funny how you talk about that, because like we've helped a lot of people, and I always advocate for elimination diets, right? If you don't tolerate meat, what do you tolerate?
Sure.
Like the best thing you tolerate, if that is chickpeas, if it's, I don't care what it is,
Sure.
roll everything else back and then slowly add in and see how your body responds, right? Most people, meat works pretty well. I do great on red meat. Most people don't.
Sure.
Right.
I used to do great over meat too.
so,
No problem.
you can do great in red meat, and you've got to really look at how your body feels and responds. And it's testament to you going to the gym and you go, how do I feel? How's my workout? Do I have the same injuries? Are my joints hurting? Like there's so many things you have to really be in touch. You can't just follow this ideology that says do this. You have to really go, what really truly works for me? And I feel you guys went through a process. You made a very difficult decision. I have all the respect for someone who can follow a plan, right? And a plan as extreme as going, I am cutting this out because you've eaten your whole life this way.
Jeremy was a deer hunter.
You see what I mean? Like you've eaten your whole life like this.
I was raised by a man from South America where we had steak on our plate
South America.
every night.
Yes.
Meat. Yeah. And from every inch of the animal, like we both were raised on meat. We met on Match.com. And the reason that I messaged Jeremy back is because somewhere in his first note to me, he said, if you'd like to meet a retired firefighter who likes to take naps and eats bacon, let me know. And that's how I was like, that sounds fun.
Funny.
He wasn't like, he didn't have like a gym selfie like all the other corny guys on Match.com. And so we just lied, the joke that like we met on this love of bacon. And here we are, the joke's on us. We turned vegan all these years later.
Bacon is just not the same type.
That's right. So
When we went vegan, I was really indifferent. I was happy.
Jeremy's easy in that way. Like, let's try it.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. I love food.
Yes.
So much.
Sure. And that's a difficult switch.
I love food. Like last night I went out to eat somewhere, and I won't mention where, and they tried. They had a little vegan thing on the menu. And I really went in like, it's going to be fine. And it was terrible.
Yes.
When I have a bad meal, it pisses me off because I love food so much and I don't allow myself to really eat like, I don't eat out much, of course, at my own restaurant, but I just want it to be good. I've waited all day for this delicious dinner and it was shit and it really pissed me off.
I don't blame you for that.
Oh, God, I just love food so much.
That was something I was actually thinking about is where do you go to eat? Like if you ever like don't want to cook, now you have a restaurant, but you don't always want to go there.
Part of it that's part of the reason we opened a restaurant because we were tired of driving an hour to a vegan restaurant. Jokes on this, it's really hard, but that's a whole other podcast. So most restaurants have something vegan on the menu, or you can adjust a few things.
But it's usually pretty bad, though.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
Not always.
Bless their heart for trying.
Bless their sweet little hearts.
They're only trying because the vegan population is growing, but they're putting no effort into it.
It's a sales pitch.
That's not a blatant statement. I will say, because I eat out more than Jeremy does. I have lunches out with friends or working or whatnot, so I go out more. I will tell you that being in the restaurant business now and knowing other restaurant owners, if they are open to putting something vegan on their menu that they had not thought about before, I have helped multiple local restaurants do
That's
that.
awesome.
And I'll tell them, like, I'll come and spend a day with you, bring your chef, bring him to my restaurant. I'll teach him what I order on my truck and how he can make something easy, how you can reuse some of these ingredients you already have. I did that at a place that you and I have been to many times together, Kevin. I've done that for a restaurant in Fishhawk. I've done that for a new brewery out in Valrico. So
awesome.
it's something that I like, because then I told them, if you don't have something on your menu, my friends and I will never come here together because they know that I need to be able to eat something and I'm not going to come here.
Right.
And I'm not the only one. Don't do it for me. Do it for 14% of the population.
There you go.
6% of the population is vegan. Another 8% is vegetarian. And 1 in 3 people considers themselves a flexitarian, which is a silly made up thing. But what flexitarian means is I am willing to eat something that does not have the standard things that I normally would eat in it. I am flexible. I am not closed-minded.
Which I feel most people, I mean, I can attest, like, I would be the last person who can sit here and throw a stone at anybody on a different diet. When I started bodybuilding, if you told me a pile of shit with quick muscle on, I would fucking eat it. Like, I'm the last person to throw a stone.
You eat that pile of shit and you'll lose weight. I wouldn't eat that.
So I'm the last person to throw any stones at someone in regards to how they eat. You guys have found a method of, again, you have a restaurant, so you figured out how to make food in a way, and that speaks to your entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes,
right? You found the most efficient way to make it. That's great. Like, I mean, and I haven't eaten in many vegan restaurants, but I remember there's a couple I went to, and there's a few in Canada we stayed there. The food's delicious. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Oh my God, you will sit there and go, wow, I didn't know it tasted this way.
One of my slogans for my restaurant is I blow the minds of carnivores every day, because I really do. I mean, my stuff is really good.
It is.
I really wanted the restaurant to be a place where people would have their minds opened. I wanted the curious. I wanted the defiant. I wanted them to come, have a meal. I wanted them all. And they're like, wow, this is actually not terrible. This is really good. The vegans will find you no matter what. Yes. I could open a 2x2 hut in the middle of nowhere.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Because we do that. We go somewhere, we will find a place, no matter what. I needed the non-vegans to find me. 65 to 70% of my customers are not vegan.
That's really, I like that.
Vast majority. And I have become friends with many vegan restaurant owners in our community, the ones that are still open, and it's the same case at their restaurants as well. Because people, it's a movement, right? And it's trendy a little. And I think in the beginning at my restaurant, it was, my friend owns this, so let's be polite and go eat over there. We got to support our friend. And then they came and was like, oh, this isn't bad. And I'll bring my friend. And it kind of grew that way.
Yes.
I think, I have been someone who's tried to give back to our community in a lot of ways. And I know a lot of people because of my networking. And again, I think it was people being polite. Then they were shocked that it was delicious when they got there.
Which is good for you, because I think that's testament to also when you can take something that people have misconceptions about, right? Because all the Netflix documentaries, I've watched all of them. I've watched a lot of programs specifically on vegan, what the process is. Because if I ever have someone that needs to help, and that's the part they want to take, I have to help them. And it's great that you're inviting people in who may have a misconception, but they're willing to try it. You're open mind, and you realize, listen, it's all good.
Yes,
it really is all good.
Yes. If I closed my restaurant tomorrow, I would not feel as though I failed, because there are literally thousands of people that had their very first vegan meal at my restaurant.
That's cool.
and it opened their mind to maybe ordering it somewhere else or choosing.
That it's the lack of judgment on anybody.
It's changed their perception.
Which is, that's the most
It's
important
familiar things. They just happen to be vegan.
When we went vegan, prior to us going vegan, we were invited by one of her coworkers to go have dinner, and she's a vegan. She said, "Come to my house.
I'm gonna make you guys chicken patties.
I'm gonna make you a vegan dinner." We laughed to ourselves. We're like, "No thanks. We'll probably stop."
We have dinner plans. We'll meet you guys for drinks. Is what we told her.
Yes.
And had Burger King because we were like, it was like, and I remember us having that conversation all the way down there. Like, can you imagine being vegan?
How bad?
Just it's
So close-minded.
It's
So close-minded.
And so we just opened the minds. And, well, my mind was open as well because when we became vegan, having the North American diet where I was always the grill master. You know, I throw a piece of meat on the grill.
Flank steak was our go-to.
You know, flank steak, salmon. There was always a constant rotation.
Yeah.
So we'd make the vegetables and the
And then
rice,
starch.
potatoes,
So
or whatever.
when you take that away and you're left with everything that's plant-based, you start to realize how many things that you've been missing in your diet that are flavorful.
Oh,
and
yeah.
colorful. I had eaten colors I never even knew existed, flavors I never knew
that's
existed.
so good.
And it was so good and so, what's the word, satiating,
Yes.
that I was like, I never, from the very first day, I never missed meat because it was so filling.
I mean, and his wife's some good cooks.
And she was such a good cook that she made it because of her Hispanic heritage of making Spanish food and adding that little cultural flavor to the dishes. I was so amazed at how open my palate had become to all this new diet that I never even missed the steak and the butter and the milk, and I just didn't miss it at all.
Which is a good point to talk back to, because coming from South Africa, and you'd probably hear this from anyone from a foreign country, like you get to North America and, oh my God, the food's terrible. It's like, there's no flavor.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's, milk, sugar. I don't taste anything. No one knows how to make a cup of coffee. All these things is pretty much what I hear from every foreigner coming in. And there's a good point in opening your palate to different flavors and different things, and kind of realizing, and I want to go to the next point where, now that you guys have found, and you now have a system, you've written a cookbook, right? You've figured out ways to make tasty meals, right, from plant-based. I want to go to some of the mindsets that people have a misconception about.
Okay.
Right? So you enter the vegan diet. You go for everything. Like I've had the vegan cheeses. They taste good. Like I can't go.
Some of them.
But so does a McDonald's burger, right? No, I shouldn't eat it. It's got so many bad ingredients. When you start switching over and realizing, right, that you now need to take out the processing. I was listening to a very good guru from India, and he was talking about different cultures. You've got the Masai Mara in Africa. They primarily drink blood and drink milk, and they're healthy, and they live to 90 years old, right? You've got the Inuits, who primarily just eat fat and protein, right? And then you've got the opposite cultures, right? You've got the Mediterranean diet, which is a little bit of fish, mostly salad, and they're super healthy, right? What's the difference? And he said it, and I was like, you make what? Processed food.
Yes.
None of those cultures eat processed food, and their sources are really good and clean.
Sure.
So how did you switch from this mindset of going, okay, so, we have all these processed options. You walk into any store today, and they'll give you a whole mountain of processed options.
Sure.
Now you're switching over and you're going more into a whole food, cleaner diet. How does that change the dynamic? Because there's got to be more challenges to that.
There are challenges to that because processed food is easy. And when you live in America long enough, you get ingrained into easy dinners.
Yes.
It's the same reason that we would have salmon instead of chicken nuggets when we were not vegan, right? So did we eat processed food in the beginning? For sure, because we were learning. Do we still eat some processed foods? For sure.
They're human beings. Of course you do.
We're human beings,
Yes.
everything in moderation. So we had to learn how we could replace those things. Beans are a beautiful source of protein, and we don't overdo tofu because there's this controversy about soy, so you have to be really careful.
Yes.
So I have a lady that I know. She's been vegan probably 22 years, and she is a nutritionist, and she owns like a fitness. Actually, you guys should have her on here one day. She's fascinating. And
awesome.
John, the bodybuilding vegan, he's been vegan 25 years too. They should sit here next week. They're great.
Nice.
So anyway, I remember having a conversation with her, and I said, you know, people talk a lot about all the ingredients that are in Impossible Meat or in Beyond Meat or whatever it is. And, you know, they're right there in the box. You can read them and they have a bunch of scary words that no one can pronounce. And she said, you know, everything in moderation. Does that mean you can't have an Impossible Burger sometimes? Of course not. Don't eat them every day. Replace those proteins with good proteins. Tofu, beans, nuts, seeds, things like that. But it's not just Impossible Burgers. It's cheese. It's, you know, it's all sorts of different things. I make my own cheese a lot too. You can make cheese out of nuts, which is crazy.
Yep.
There is
Cashew cheese.
We make
Cashew
cheese out of
is
cashews.
Yep.
Kevin's like, what the hell are you talking about? I know. It's awesome. It's really good.
Yeah.
You can make cheese out of almonds. There is it's this product called Nutritional yeast. It's literally
I've heard of that.
made from yeast particles. It has a naturally cheesy flavor to it. It is full of protein and full of B12.
Which is how
And
milk
fiber.
becomes cheese. It's
Yes.
the same process.
Yes. I eat it every day.
Uh,
You can put it on your popcorn. You can put it in your pasta. You can
Yeah.
put it on your salad. You can,
You can put it on spaghetti for like Parmesan cheese.
you can just use it by itself. I use it. Once you mix it into something that you're cooking, unless you use a ton, the flavor kind of goes away. I use it to make my mac and cheese taste cheesier at the restaurant. It's delicious. I love it on popcorn, but it's so good for you. So I eat that almost every day, and that way I don't have to worry too much. I never worry about where my B12 comes from. B12, lots of vegans are deficient in B12. A lot of them will get B12 injections because of it, and our B12 is fine because we eat so much nutritional yeast.
You found the alternatives,
Yes,
which
yes.
is the next point I want to
Yeah.
get to. Yeah.
So anyway, my friend Erin, she told me the difference between processed food that's vegan and you are assuming that the equivalent is a chicken nugget in a box in the freezer section. But what if I told you that the beef in the supermarket is also processed?
Oh yeah.
What if I told you that the chicken but here's the difference. They are not required to put all the ingredients on the outside of that, on the label of that, on the cellophane, which you buy it, right? You don't know where that cow was raised. You don't know what additives that it's had, the antibiotics it's been injected with. You know, when it was slaughtered, when it was cut, if there's been dye put into it, if it's been, you know.
If they say grass fed and it was only the last 2 weeks of its life.
Right. And so there are a lot of sanctimonious non-vegans like, well, I eat, you know, and you told me that you get your meat very differently than this, which I think is great, right? You know where it all comes from. That's awesome. I would venture to guess, I don't know the statistic, but I venture to guess you are the anomaly if you do that. I don't think most people do
let's
that.
be honest, we're both the anomaly because
Sure.
the amount of people who actually take the time the most important things you can do to understand is what you put in your body.
Sure.
Right? We do it on minimum 3 times a day. Right? It's literally how you survive.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that do not understand their health concerns, their chronic illnesses. As you said, you had a ton of chronic illnesses. My chronic illnesses disappeared when I started taking really clear promoted. I'm a person who's been dieting since I was 16.
Yeah.
I've been following programs, right? And how many people do not understand what they're actually putting in their body? And
That's right.
I don't care which form you take it in, but once you start actually taking control,
paying attention,
as I
right?
said, once you pay attention, you realize that if you look at these ancient cultures,
Yes.
been around for thousands of years, this one primarily just eats protein from animals. Great. They're super healthy.
Sure.
These guys primarily eat plants. They're super healthy. What's the difference? And exactly what you said is what they put in their bodies.
Right? It's where you're getting it from and what you know is a part of it.
Yes.
So if you're walking into Publix and you go to the meat section and you're buying some beef in a little styrofoam thing with a plastic on it, how do you think it's any different than the Impossible Burger? It's different, but it's not. You don't know what is in either of those, right? I mean, the only difference is the Impossible Burger at least will give you a bunch of words you can't pronounce, and you can Google them if you wanted to.
Words.
The history is there.
I'll tell you from a carnivore's perspective is like I will never ever buy meat if I cannot verify where it came from. I need to know where it comes from.
Sure.
Again, because the amount of toxins that they can put inside that animal.
It's Unbelievable.
Right. I've seen the
And
process.
there's only like 2 major manufacturers of beef in this country, and they all go into 2 different plants. And you could have 1 cow from Indiana and 1 cow from Michigan, 1 cow from Florida, and they all just get ground up into the same process and all packaged. And so if one of those cows was involved in an E. coli outbreak, you can't even identify where it came from because it is all over the place. It's all in one big pot.
Which is why North America, which kind of blows my mind every month I hear it. Whenever I hear about there's an E. coli outbreak with kale, or with food, and I'm like, how?
How dare they?
How did it get through how did you not tell it as E. coli? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Because the control factors on how the food is processed.
Yes.
So I love what you guys were talking about, your garden that you had.
Mm.
When we were in Canada, Helene had a massive garden. We were giving it away because it was so much.
That's awesome.
I find that's also important. Now you know where your food came from.
Sure.
Like she
Literally.
made sure it was organic seeds. Where
Yeah.
it was from, they're non-GMO.
Yeah.
How do they grow? It takes a lot more work.
Yes.
But when you actually eat the food, you realize the taste and difference. There's a difference.
Crazy. I'll tell you this. We have, because we don't have enough to do, we have a German exchange student who lives with us. She's wonderful. We were down to 1 kid at home, and so we needed like a puppy. Got to get them another puppy, right? So I'm just joking. They're wonderful kids, but they entertain each other. They're best friends.
That's fine.
So she's born and raised in Germany. She's visited the U.S. a few times, and obviously she came to live here with us. The first month she was here, she was sick every day.
Ah.
Since she's been here, she'll never hear this, right? She's gained some weight. She's very slender. She's she's almost skinny, right?
I've heard this story so many times.
She's eating what we eat.
Yeah.
She's been a vegetarian for a year before she came here, so she was cool with coming to a vegan home. Her father's been vegan 25 years in Germany, so she's very familiar with the vegan diet. And so she moved with us, and I told her, if you want to eat, cheese or milk, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, she had a little fridge in her room. That way he won't eat it because if it's in our house, he's going to assume it's okay for him to eat. So anyway, she's gained weight since she's been here. And she told me my stomach hurt so much for the first month that I was here. And you guys are feeding me a very clean diet. How clean is it? It's not, because it's here, right?
Yes.
No matter how hard you try, we're never going to be as clean as it is in Europe or in other countries.
She did a funny story on that though. She had a huge misconception when she was on her way to America. Everyone that she knew in Germany, they said, be prepared to eat really unhealthy because all they eat is fast food.
Actually, that wasn't her friends or family. That was the International Exchange Program organization. They prepared the students, all the students that come to America. You need to be ready. Americans eat a lot of fast food.
Like
she almost canceled it. Like, I don't want to, how I'm going to gain so much weight.
She was going to eat fast food 3 times a day.
Yes.
So she was pleasantly surprised.
By the way.
I can tell you as a foreigner though, let's just be honest. That is the norm.
It's not
pretty
too far.
close though.
Yeah.
You see the lineups. I always find it super. You've got places like First Watch, which is not the greatest, but their sourcing of the eggs is better than one. And I'm watching people line up outside Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, lining up, and you have a restaurant right there, or you have Just Love Coffee, right? Which is which is organic coffee.
Don't even talk about the lines at Chick-fil-A.
And you've got these options right in front of you. You're choosing to take that one.
I think what happens is, like, I think back to my time in the corporate world where I was guilty of this, where you're so busy with wife and kids and whatever, you realize you didn't eat, and it's run by Dunkin' Donuts because it's right there. I need breakfast and a coffee.
And it's cheap.
Or in my case, I would do Starbucks oftentimes when I was on the road because it was a consistent cup of coffee. I knew what I was going to get when you travel for work.
Oh yeah.
So there's convenience factor to so many of these choices instead of planning ahead.
Oh, it's all convenience.
Americans
we're just geared around convenience, which is why I think veganism is slow to transition because there's no convenience there.
It's not easy.
If you want to be a healthy vegan, you have to learn to prepare all your meals at home.
Let me tell you what it's last we were on a road trip.
Oh yeah.
What are we going to eat?
That's right.
You know what is the most vegan-friendly fast food restaurant?
Yeah.
Taco Bell.
Is it really?
That makes sense.
They don't put lard in their beans.
Yeah.
They don't make their rice with chicken broth, which is very common. and you can get lots of vegetables added to it and beans and then
so that's
potatoes
good
and if we don't normally eat Taco Bell, I usually pack lunch for people.
But if you're a
behind,
Well, and Burger King has the Impossible Whopper.
yeah, which is not great, but it'll do. In a pinch, it'll do.
Yeah.
And when my kids are still born and raised here, and so our 22-year-old daughter is vegan. Our 15-year-old daughter who lives at home is a vegetarian. She's a teenager, right? So she goes to Chick-fil-A after school with her friends, and she'll eat they have a little kale salad there, and she'll eat some French fries. She doesn't feel like she's missing out because she doesn't mind. It's the cheese pizza at a friend's house on a Friday night party, some cake, things like that.
Yep.
Our 22-year-old is funny. She was very resistant to being vegan. She never really loved beef when she was not a vegan. She was more of a chicken, fish kind of kid. And so when she was, I guess, about 18, there was a little vegan place in Brandon that was a deli, and she just really wanted to work there. And she lied in her interview and told them that she was vegan because she just really wanted to work there. She just wanted the job. It just seemed like such cool people that worked there. So they gave her the job, and she worked there probably a week before one of the other vegan employees talked her into it. She admitted to her, well, I'm not really vegan, And she was like, let me tell you why you should be.
That's funny.
And she went vegan that day, and she's more of an animal rights vegan. At 22, you don't care as much about your health that you do when you're in your 40s and 50s. So
you also have to, let's be clear, there's vegan and there's plant-based.
Yes.
The plant-based is a diet. Vegan is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Vegan means that you don't
you
buy.
guys heard that?
You don't buy leather shoes. And I had to make sure
it's complete. It's top to bottom. It's a similar carnivore side. You have, and again, this is the next part I want to go into is you've got the extremes of these, which what I hate about that is that's primarily what everyone sees, right? And then you go, those people are crazy, right? It's unfortunate. Now, you guys live a very balanced life, right? I can speak to people on both sides of the aisle because I want to understand why you do it. I don't care that you do it.
Sure.
As long as you don't force me and I won't force you, but let's try and find a middle ground. And the misconceptions that I find, especially when it comes to animal rights, right? I understand that if you told me there was for me a viable way that I never had to hurt an animal, I'm the first guy for it.
Sure, of course.
Right. But we live in a realistic world.
Yep.
We
don't live in a vegan
we're omnivores,
world.
right?
Yeah.
And as I said previously, you have to be very respectful and understand where your food comes from. But I find that, especially with younger generations who kind of jump onto the ideology, right? Because the ideology is driven by a narrative, and there's very little substance below.
Oh, we could put that on any topic, right?
Yeah, any topic, exactly that, right? And I find when you sit down, is because I did a deep dive on both ends. You could do regenerative farming with animals, and you could do a really good job, and you could treat the animals really well, as long as you can get over the fact that those animals at some point will be used as food.
Sure.
But as I explained to my wife, we're an advocate. We're just about to buy a property with land on. I'm happy to get a cow. I said to her, I'm very happy to get a cow, treat it well, to be a pet. But if it has to be used as food, I'm the first guy to tell you I'll slaughter it. I'll do it.
What'd she say?
Easy on your
Wait a
training.
minute.
That cow's dead.
Yeah, but understand, if you're getting a cow, I see it that is what its purpose is. In the same breath,
No.
but I feel that's the part that's missing.
Sure.
People on the carnivore side that advocate for meat. Are you willing to do that?
Right.
To get the minute I tell you I've been to abattoirs, right? I've seen the process. I have slaughtered animals. I know what this takes.
Sure.
Go do it. And I'll tell you now, 99% of the population will throw up and never.
And most people are like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it.
Yes.
Most people are not like you. Most people are happy to walk into Publix, go to the meat section, pick up meat, don't care where it
Taste
comes
it, I don't
from,
care what it
taste
is.
it, I don't care,
Sure.
and have no thought behind what that cow endured.
What it gave to you. It gave
Yes,
its life.
it gave him
Even
its
the
life.
chickens are a big
Same
problem.
thing.
Like
Too.
there's been the actual
Yeah.
houses where they
Everything.
what's the word they call that? Where they basically load them up with all the stuff and they're so fat they can't move.
They can't move. It's because they want their breasts to be so big, they put their
Right,
feet
yeah.
so they can't poke each other.
Right.
The horror stories in that is KFC had one.
Crazy.
Those KFC one, they genetically engineered chickens that didn't have beaks.
Yeah.
They have a pipe in their throat. Like, that's more.
Yeah.
It's awful.
That should never
And
happen.
most people have no idea or they don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
Out of the antibiotic consumption in this country, 80% 80. This number blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
80% of antibiotics used in this country are for animals that we eat.
That's crazy.
20% is for humans.
That don't need it.
That don't need it.
That's crazy.
Here's why they need it is because they are jammed into a slaughterhouse. They are jammed into a small space
Let's
and they're
keep them
giving
as-
each other diseases.
And let's keep them as
So
healthy as we
they
can while
keep
we
them
do this.
healthy. So what happens when they have so many antibiotics pumped into them and then consumers consume those? What happens to us? We become antibiotic resistant. What happens when you're antibiotic resistant? When
Chronic
you
illness.
have chronic illness or you have an infection and the antibiotics that the doctor gives you won't treat it because your body is so immune to antibiotics because you've eaten them.
Wow.
I mean,
And then-
it's a problem.
It really
It's
is.
a
It
big,
really- I
big
think we're-
problem that people don't ever think about.
Yeah.
20 years away from almost, I think 96% of the population being antibiotic resistant.
Yes.
While at the same time, no one realizes that oregano oil is the best antibiotic on earth.
Yes.
But again,
Nothing you
know
can feed
this.
your body with food.
Yeah, you know this. I know this. But most people don't take that consideration.
Of course not.
But what I find interesting, again, especially when I speak to animal rights activists, right? Because I'll have this conversation, I'm very honest.
Sure.
And most people who aren't ideologically captured appreciate what I'm saying and where we're coming from. But, since veganism has taken off over the last 20 years, I think it hits a high point, and I think a lot of people realize how difficult it is, so they're reassessing their choices.
Oh, I cannot tell you how many people I've met that say, I used to be vegan.
Make no mistake,
I used to be vegan.
Yeah, carnivore is no different,
Sure,
right?
it's hard, right?
And on the flip end, what happens is, when you see at the way that the amount of animals that die producing a soy field, right? The amount of bees that they import every year and just let die. Like, you can't just be advocating for the cuddly animals. You have to
Sure.
be advocating for all of them and
Yes.
really look at regenerative farming. That's what's going to work. You have to understand that every one of those animals are precious and have to form a cycle for us to be able to live a good, healthy lifestyle.
And most people don't think that way.
No.
They make a blanket statement and say things like, I love animals. And in my head, because I try not to be that crazy vegan lady, in my head, I say to them, you love pets.
Yeah, you do expose. But the thing is, this is the balance point, right? Because you
Yes.
live in both worlds.
Yes.
Because you're a well balanced. Both of you are well balanced. You live in a world where you speak to people who have different ideologies, different thought processes, different way that they do it, and then you also get exposed to the people who really are, and I do the same on the other end, right? So you'll meet people who say, okay, I'll do a carnivore diet. And I explain to everybody, like, carnivore diet is great. If you like meat, then you can eliminate. But, let's talk about elimination. Salt, water, meat. Start there. And you'll see them go, what?
That's all you eat?
Salt, it's not all I eat. I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
I do an 80-20.
Okay.
80% of my diet is that, and I will eat a cooking app I should with my wife.
Yeah.
I'm a human being.
Sure,
and I have
we're
to
all
enjoy
human.
The world you're in.
Of course.
Just, as you said, moderation and
Moderation, yeah.
But if you really want to embrace it, salt, water, meat. Let's see how long you last.
Wow.
Right? I did it for a year, right? And it's not that bad. My body works well with it. But again, I can be honest and say, what? If I add blueberries in, I feel better.
I was going to say, no fruits.
Right, but this is where the misconceptions come in, right? Because you'd imagine that someone who eats meat like that is going to be super unhealthy. I was more regular, right? I felt better. Any kind of chronic illnesses went away, right? Do I think it's sustainable and something that should be done over the long term if you don't have illness? No. I think the same thing can be said on the flip side, because you get from a point where, okay, if you're going to be vegan, great, no processed foods, zero, right? Go try that. How do you feel about someone having a vegan cat?
Cats cannot not be vegan. No, our dogs are vegan.
Yeah, we have two big Newfoundlands.
We have Newfoundlands that are vegan.
And they can, and
They do very well.
we've got dogs. The two of our dogs are actually allergic to red meat.
Yes,
Because
yes.
it's actually a common occurrence.
How many dogs do you have?
We have 4 dogs.
I know.
Right.
A lot of dogs. So we told me.
So what people don't realize is dogs, because of their breeding state, are actually more inclined to eat plant,
Yes.
and some do really well.
And the skin allergy is
Go away.
It's crazy.
Goes away.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
But cats can't. Cats will die without meat.
Yeah, they're a different species. Yeah, they can't
know
do
that.
dogs. Dogs
can.
do really well on this. I mean, that's my
You're saying more about hunter anyway, so it makes sense.
But also,
That does make sense.
So here's an interesting fact, right? So as much as dogs have been domesticated, for the last 50 years we've been feeding them kibble.
Yeah.
Do you know how much protein is given?
Oh my gosh,
it's
it's
terrible.
so bad for them.
There's so
I know, like we've considered taking our dogs to raw, like a raw diet.
Oh yeah, Jeremy's mom did that. How long did Lucy live? She was like 15.
Yeah, she was very healthy.
Yeah,
Made a-
very.
the same
healthy.
as us. We
Oh,
had a 14-year-old that we brought from South Africa. She died last year, and our two little Pekingese, they lived in 3 different countries, and they're pushing 15, 16.
Yeah, my Chihuahua, she went vegan when we did. She died so she was vegan just the last couple of years of her life, but she was 17 when she and she just suddenly got like a heart murmur.
I do want to ask you. You mentioned about the kids a little bit ago, and I have 8, 6, and 4-year-old, and I think that's our biggest battle with kids is just trying to get them to eat. Like we expose and I don't think it's realistic for us to put our eating style on our children, right? What advice would you share based on what you learned and what through with your own kids, and when you made this? I mean, let's be real, it's a major shift in how
major.
How did you navigate that? Because I know some horror stories from some friends that had to go through this with their kids. Our approach, just really quick, is we expose our kids to things, but we don't force them to do anything. I'm just curious what you guys did.
So at the time, we had a 10 and 17-year-old home, and mom cooks dinner every day. So I made a promise to them. I promise you that dinner will taste good. If it will taste good, will you try it? Yes.
Fair.
I had someone say to me, actually not that long ago, and it made me think about those early days of our vegan journey. And they said, when you're eating a meal, it's not necessary. Now, maybe this doesn't count for you. You did like carnivore. Well, you're not craving that chicken flesh. You're not craving, the milk from a cow. What you're craving is a delicious the spices, the sauce, the taste, how satiated you feel.
Give that aroma. Chicken without anything on. You don't need it.
That's right.
You don't need it.
Really?
It's right.
I agree with that.
Eating is an experience for most people. Unless you're like, some people they don't even care about eating, they just eat to live. And a lot of people live to eat. And so it's the experience about it. It's the taste, the flavor, the smell, the table, the family. So I told my kids, give me a chance to make you some delicious meals. I promise I won't make you eat anything that's awful or that you won't like, which I did when they were not vegan. Like, hey, your grandfather's making liver. I'm like, but they would eat it because I had to, So we tried that first. And so I just made sure that whatever I made, I was just replacing that chicken with tofu.
But
it tastes the same.
Yeah, that's
why my mantra is I'm blowing the minds of carnivores, because you don't know that it doesn't have meat in it.
Yeah.
When I'm making a bolognese with lentils, you won't miss the meat.
You won't know.
It tastes the same. You wouldn't know unless you oh, that's a lentil. It's not a chunk of beef. You won't know. And so I'm very lucky, and I know this is not the case for all parents. My kids are great eaters. And I didn't do anything different than you probably have done with all 3 of your kids, where you give them all the good stuff and then they still want the junk. I get it. It happens. And they went through phases where they wanted junk and they didn't want to eat good food. And, there are times I don't want that. And so you make them something else. So we have grandchildren. Our granddaughter is 7. She can be a little picky. Her favorite meal on planet Earth is buttered noodles.
My kids do.
Oh my god! I have it on my restaurant. When she comes to our house, her parents, I would say they make her, but they're, it's a battle every day for them with food.
Yeah.
So when she comes to our house, oh god, we have to eat something vegan at Noni's house. But so we just let her eat buttered noodles. But she is also very open-minded because she knows that it's going to taste good. So anyway, I just made sure that it tasted good and it tasted familiar. And they wouldn't fight me on it. And I never said to them, you have to be vegan. And I still don't say that. But in this home, we will have vegan food, and I promise it always tastes good. What you eat when you're not here, or what you buy with your own money when you're that age, the 17-year-old at the time had a job. Yeah. And she was eating chicken outside of the house. Or she'd go to my parents' house and oh, you poor thing, your mom's starving. This chicken I made. But and grandparents.
Sure.
So, but then they made their own choices. It's really delicious. In the summertime when there's no school and there's not a lot, our house tends to be the place where kids hang out and not so much outside. then our teenager is vegan all summer because she's not really going places where there aren't things for her to eat. So we're lucky in that way. Our kids are really open-minded. Now, we're a blended family. The two I'm talking about are my two from a previous marriage, and Jeremy's got two daughters from his first marriage. They were raised vegetarian, his daughters.
Really? Wow.
And actually, the oldest one had talked about going vegan 10 years ago. We laughed at her.
No.
But now both of them are big meat eaters because their a husband and a boyfriend are not vegan whatsoever. And so it's funny, the 28-year-old, she was she was vegetarian her whole life. When she met her husband, he's like, I want a homestead and I want to have cows and kill them. And she's in it to win it. She's going to do that with it.
Wow.
She's completely changed how she eats. But they love our food too. My food, because it tastes good.
Yeah.
I think if you make it taste good, you can call it a nugget and they'll eat it.
They're young enough.
They're young enough.
You don't
They don't know.
what's in it. They don't know.
They don't
It's just
know.
I just know it tastes good.
They
know
don't
it tastes
know.
good.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell them it doesn't have meat in it.
I have a friend I grew up with. His name's Carl. He's originally from England. And so he grew up eating a very traditional British diet. He moved here when he was a teenager. And so he has a son. And his son is an adult now. But when he was little, he would say to me, I have to tell Asher that everything is a nugget, so he'll eat it. Doesn't matter what it is. I just tell him, like, oh, this is a potato nugget.
I mean, it is.
That's funny.
What you gotta do, make these kids
Yeah,
eat.
for sure.
Oh,
You made a good point about the kids with, like, you're not always with them.
Yes.
Right. So I think one of the things that we've tried to do, and you know, Jason, so we refer to him as Mr. Jason. My son, like, he's into weightlifting stuff already. He likes that a lot. He sees,
How old is he?
He's 6, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
But he's always like flexing, trying to show his veins, you know. I'm like, well, listen, if you want veins, you got to eat your protein. Like, you got to eat this certain way. And so we constantly have conversations. And my daughter, who's 8, you know, she'll go to friends' houses, and our friends, they don't eat well, right?
Yeah.
They make poor choices, and so we're not with her all the time. So we'll say to her, well, what choices did you make? Like, we don't ever scold for it.
Sure.
And like, there's been times where she comes home with a stomach ache because she had cookies and ice cream and sodas and all these things that we don't have.
Yeah.
And then she'll come home and say, well, can I have some ice cream or something like that? We're like, well, what did you have when you were there? And so we're constantly having conversation with them
Sure.
to help them understand that, like, you have to make these choices on your own. We can't always be there to tell you what you should or shouldn't do.
Sure.
So remember how you felt. And so I feel like, I just think you guys really made a good point there of like, you are educating and you're showing that in our house, this is the way we do it.
But you're allowing for freedom of choice.
Yes.
Like, because it's reality of life.
It is reality of life. And our youngest always says, Mom, one day I will be vegan when it's easier for me. And I say, great. And if it's never easy for you, that's okay.
Fine, it doesn't
It's
change.
your journey. And like, I'm never going to force.
You're going to be thankful for what you guys have exposed them to. And the
I hope
idea
so.
that you've taught them, and one day they'll realize what that
There
was.
needs to be more conversations like this where people can look at it from both sides. Say, okay, that works for you. That's an understanding part. You know, like the thing that always confuses me, and it confuses me not because someone else is doing it, because it doesn't work for me, right? Like the digestion part, right? So I do not do well with tons of vegetables. My digestion just doesn't work. No matter how much fiber I add, I've done the
We're going to talk about poop.
Yes, you guys eventually. You know what I always found is digestion and gut health. You know, your gut's your second brain.
Sure.
If your gut's in distress, you're
Oh,
losing
yeah.
it,
Gut
right?
health is so important.
So when you start, like, I found like I cannot eat that many beans, I will explode. Right? It just doesn't work for my body. And,
Well, we don't go crazy with beans either. We eat them, but
no. I mean like a little bit of beans. Like,
oh, really? Yeah, some
my
people
body
just
just
can't.
and when you start this, like, obviously, again, supplementation is important. I truly believe the reason that veganism is becoming something more sustainable is because we found so many smart ways
Sure.
of how to find the nutrients we need.
Yes.
Right. Again, some of it might be some processing, which we'll get better at as we progress. But I mean, I love Star Trek, right? So I always think of Star Trek. You know, in Star Trek, we could have that thing where you can just push a button and create your food.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we'll be in there.
I mean, ChatGPT is getting us close.
Right? So that's where we want to be. But
Sure.
digestion. So now you.
Does anybody need a break real quick?
If you do.
Digestion. Okay. Very good.
So, you know, from a digestion standpoint, so you're eating proteins and I wouldn't want to say that don't work for the human body, because the human body is super adaptable, right? But in order to make them bioavailable, it's got to go through certain processing. And I know just from my experiences, it can affect your gut.
Sure.
What do you guys do to mitigate?
So I've never had it really affect me negatively. In fact, it's been the total opposite.
So you just had everything good.
Yeah,
It's good.
both of us.
It's crazy. So before we were vegan, I never really ate a lot of Italian food. I always said I can't eat pasta. It just makes me really bloated. And I mean like unbutton your pants after the first two bites.
Yeah,
Just-
I relate.
Right?
Yep.
And so I just didn't eat pasta. If I did, it was very rare. And if even then it was a tiny amount.
I could never eat pasta the rest of my life, and I would never miss it.
Really? So
Yeah.
now I love pasta.
Sam, she loves pasta.
Yeah, I
Me,
love pasta.
yeah.
I love it, but I wouldn't let myself eat it because I just felt like garbage when I was done. And I would my belly would distend and I'd have to unbutton my pants. So, I don't know, sometime during our beginning of our vegan journey, my kids love pasta. And like, Mom, please make it. You never make pasta. And I think it was actually a lentil bolognese that a friend of mine had shared with me. So I made the recipe and I was like, well, I guess I'll just have a stomachache and I'll eat it.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing. I have, and this is not an exaggeration. In the 5 years we've been vegan, I bet I've been bloated 5 times.
Wow.
See, that's a good insight for me because from the opposite for me on carnivore is I found if I eat certain foods, same thing, just bloating, I feel terrible. Cut those foods out. Stick
Like
to
go lay down type of.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you just feel horrible.
Yes.
And you cut them out. And it's always funny to me, everyone's experience, because again, when I tell someone I'm a carnivore and say, listen, I just eat meat. How are you alive? I'm pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I'm actually quite alive. Thank
Everyone's pretty
you.
adaptable. Same as
Sure.
you. So that's a good point to me. So you haven't had to do anything for your goal, because I've had people on a carnivore diet. I'd have to at some point say, listen, you're going to have to add some fermented foods.
Yes.
Right.
No.
That's
we have.
awesome.
I mean, speaking of regularity, I mean, I've never had an issue going to the bathroom, but even less so being a vegan.
Yes.
Yeah.
The stomach gurgling, the bloat. No, I actually forgot that people go through that because it's been so long.
It just feels so much better. You see, I've had the same experience on my end. Everything works better. I feel better. And then you guys have the same experience when you have the odd time that you go and eat the bread. Like when we moved here, I remember when we came over, Helene immediately was allergic to eggs. Here, right?
Yeah.
From here, right? It's now taken here, and everything's, like I say, it's organic, it's free range, antibiotic free, humanely treated. Now all of a sudden she's good. So it just shows you the quality of the food, as you said, right? When you guys do eat out of that diet, right? And not out of the vegan diet, but now you eat maybe bread from Publix, which is nothing else.
Sure.
How do you feel?
Fine.
Doesn't affect you at all.
No. I'm trying to think of the last time we were affected. Last week we went on a cruise.
Yeah.
Royal Caribbean does a pretty good job of having vegan things for you to eat. It's not like the best tasting food I've ever had in my life, but it's sustainable to enjoy the sun. It's fine. So most people don't know this. There are tons of things that are accidentally vegan, like Oreo cookies are vegan,
Really?
movie theater popcorn is vegan, Lay's potato chips, Takis, a bunch of junk food is vegan. A lot of the bread you can get, most bread is vegan as well, naturally, because you don't really use egg unless you're doing an egg wash. So anyway, we're on this cruise, and Jeremy is a popcorn maniac. If he could eat popcorn every day, all day, he would. He just loves it so much. It's funny, my brother is the same way. So when I met him, I was like, I don't know if there's anyone that loves popcorn more than my brother. And then I married him.
Wow.
I got a professional popcorn machine in my house.
Very
That's how
serious.
much I love
It's
those.
very serious addiction. So anyway, we're on the cruise. And they've got popcorn all the time, and it's really good.
Wow.
And so I Google it, like, is the Royal Caribbean popcorn vegan? Yes, it's only using, this certain type of oil and blah, blah, blah. Something in the oil they were using made us both bloated. And we kept eating it though, because it was so good. We were bloated every day, and we were able to identify that it was after we ate that popcorn.
But it was, because every time we would eat something,
It's really good.
every time we would eat on that ship, I would have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it was the popcorn. I think.
Yeah, so again, you're on a trip. You don't
Yeah.
really know where
We don't
food
know.
comes from.
Yeah.
And funny enough, is popcorn. Like I love popcorn, and if it's the right type of popcorn, no bloating. Wrong type of popcorn, wrong type of seed oil.
Yes, yes.
It's just a misconception. You've got the run now where everyone thinks all seed oils are bad.
Oh god.
Right.
That's
It's
a whole
not
other
true,
topic.
right? And again, there's a lot of source for it. I tell people, like, listen, like olive oil is really good for you. Avocado oil is
so
so
good for
good
you.
for you.
Oh.
Coconut oil is so good
So
for you.
good for you.
You know,
I only really cook with those at home.
Canola oil, I don't think we should be touching it. Though you could if you get a good source, it can be useful.
It can be well
It can
sourced.
be well sourced, which is difficult to do.
Yes.
And I always find it interesting. Again, this is why I'm trying to get down to the nitty gritty. How do you guys feel? What do you eat that makes you go, like you said, the popcorn now? So what did you identify in the pop? Did you ever identify what it specifically was?
I did not. There's not many things that go into popcorn when you're putting it into a machine.
Yeah.
It's literally the kernels, the oil, and the salt.
And
So it has to be the oil.
Or a different explanation was it GMO corn.
Okay.
I find
That's very
GMO
trying to think
corn
about that.
is horrible. Once you get natural organic,
Yeah,
corn,
sure.
completely different.
Very
effect on
true.
me.
Very true. Maybe it was.
I can
Maybe
tell you that. So way back in the day, this was, 90. I just recently got out of the service. It was like probably 94, 95. And my first wife, she was a vegetarian. She'd been a vegetarian her entire life. And so this was, again, during a time in my life, I was always still experimenting with different diets. And my mom, in service, my mom had sent me a book.
Yeah.
Long before the internet, we were reading everything. She sent me a book of why humans were never meant to eat meat. I think that's the title of it. And I read that thing and I was fascinated.
Yeah.
And from the length of our digestive system, it's not like a dog where they're very short. Ours is very long. So you eat meat and it spoils in your system, rots in there, and you get all this bad bacteria and all this stuff. So I had just met she was my girlfriend at the time. She had been a vegetarian since she was 9. So I was like, let me try this, because I was around to explore a different, healthier way of eating.
Yes.
So I was a vegetarian for a year and a half. And then one day I was at my mother-in-law's, and we're in the South now. So my mother-in-law is a fabulous Southern cook. She made these stuffed bell peppers. I thought they were stuffed with something else, but they were not. They were stuffed with ground beef, and I had it on my plate. Mind you, I had not had any meat in a year and a half. I was like, screw it. I'm going to eat this thing. It smells so good. I was so sick. For 3 days, I had to miss work. I felt like I was literally going to die because my stomach was so impacted by
reintroducing
shit that I had reintroduced into my system from that processed ground beef, that it really started to get me thinking about what I was putting in my body. Now, I got over it really quickly, and I was a carnivore again for the next 20-some years, so we switched. But for me, when we switched to the vegan diet or plant-based, I felt so good, and I felt so clean. I wasn't bloated anymore. Like, you eat a big meal, you get bloated.
We eat big meals now, and not often, and we don't feel bloated anymore.
Lethargic.
Yeah.
The lethargy went away.
Yeah.
I just felt more satiated. My gut health, I just felt was better. I was much more regular.
Yeah.
So for me, eating that plant-based diet was... I just felt, because I experienced the other side of it, where I had gone such a long time. I know now, if I were to drink a glass of milk,
Oh God.
or
I know you would not
give
feel
me
good at
a
all.
steak right now, I would shit right here.
I'm doing the right side.
Yeah, right through me.
Because
Within 3 minutes, I'm sure of
my gut
that.
does very well on that plant-based diet. I think my body's just more attuned to that.
That makes sense.
I think adding to that as well is it's funny. I read that same book you read about how bad meat is for you, and it is a misconception that meat rots in your gut. It doesn't actually. Your body's really good at processing it. However, you adapt to how you eat.
I was going to say, it has to do with digestion,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
You have,
And-
if the rest of you is unhealthy, then sure, your digestion is slow and it's going to sit in your gut.
But you start adding something it's not used to. I can find even with me primarily eating a carnivore diet. Again, I work on the 80-90, 90-10, 80-20 rule, right? So 90% of the time I'm on a carnivore diet. This is my plan. And 10% of the time, honestly, I don't care.
Yeah.
And if I do one meal one day, I'm fine. If I do it 2 days,
Then you don't feel well.
then I don't feel so good.
Yeah.
Right? Then you kind of go back. But that's also, is that because the food's bad, or have I adapted? It's adaptation.
Sure.
So it's an important factor to put in. If you choose whatever you're choosing to follow, right? And there's good reasons to do either of them.
Sure.
Make sure you research, but once your body's adapted to it, like it's exactly as you say, is if it's the same as doing a water fast, right? So Helene, for illness purposes, did a 9-day water fast. 9 days, all she drank was water.
Wow.
Right, and she did really well on it. She got none of the good effects because her chronic illnesses were that thing.
Oh, poor thing.
That it didn't really. I did 3. I think the most I've done is 4 days.
He did that very recently, like a month ago.
Right, that first day you feel a bit hungry, but if you understand the difference between hunger and cravings,
That's right.
you're good.
And then you eventually forget it.
Yeah, and then the second day you're a little bit hungry, and then your body kind of halfway through gets over it. Mm-hmm. 3rd day is euphoric. You feel like you get so much more done. You don't worry about food, drink more water. I feel great.
Yep.
The 4th day, you can kind of feel your body needs something, and
Yes.
and then it's the reintroduction. Now, are you going to go eat a cheeseburger? No.
Can I tell you what he did?
What did he do? Tell me what.
So he, a guy in his BNI chapter was sitting next to him and told him he did a 4-day fast. So he's like, I'm going to do that. That was all it took.
Yeah.
So he did the same thing. Like first day was tough, second day, blah, blah, blah. So 4th day, I'm in a restaurant. So like, oh, honey, what's your first meal going to be? So I had introduced these delicious power bowls at the restaurant just maybe a month prior. And so there's one that is really good. And I make a homemade lentil burger that I serve. And it's really healthy. The lentil burger, jam-packed full of protein and fiber and all the good stuff. It's got fresh veggies and greens and mixed, whatever. Delicious. He's like, I want that healthy burger bowl with the lentil burger. Great. So I bring it home.
I just
eat every fucking morsel of it.
Because afterwards,
So sick.
afterwards,
Oh my God.
I researched because I didn't do my research first.
I was about to say.
That you're not supposed to over.
For 2 days.
Eat a crouton or something.
That's right. You're supposed to slowly reintroduce, and you're not supposed to do something too fibrous.
Yeah. I
If
mean,
you will.
Yeah. Broth is
Yes.
if for me it would be bone broth. For you,
That's what they said. For broth,
you have to do that first, and else you're gonna struggle.
like this. Like a maniac. He was so sick. Oh my
I
God.
had to go to the bathroom after that because
Immediately.
you have to, like you said, slowly reintroduce it because
He's like, well,
what
next time.
you've done during that fast is you've reprogrammed
Yes.
your digestive system.
Yes.
You've taken and you've emptied everything out, and it takes it back to zero basically.
Yes.
And so then when you start to reintroduce, you have to slowly, because now your digestive system is going from zero status.
Yes.
You want to slowly increase.
So you went from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went from 0 to 100. And now it's like turning that light switch up, taking a brand new car without breaking it in
Yes.
from 0 to 100. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to slowly increase the volume of your
Yeah.
digestive system.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't do my research. I was like, this one.
Wasn't it Frank? So someone else told him, like, oh man.
I just wondered why I was sick, and so I researched it.
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's the first thing you see is
Like,
the reason I introduced water fast is I'm a big advocate for understanding how your physiology works. So what I tell everybody, like, you do not know what hunger is. Don't tell yourself you do. Go, I missed lunch. I'm hungry. No, you're not. You're great.
you'll be all right.
So that's the first part, right? And then the second one is also understanding our lineage of where we come from as human beings. Running is not good for you. You're designed to fast walk or sprint. Those are the two things. Running, as in jogging, consistently is not good for us.
So you mean it's not normal that like a 29-year-old that I knew that used to run marathons needed a hip replacement? It's not normal, right?
Because we're not designed to jog.
I'll never
We're
go
designed
running.
to either walk vast distances, outlast our prey. That's why we can walk that far, or sprint. We can't catch them, but we sprint to get to where they are. That's
Well, to that point, I met, so my health journey, getting back to track a couple years ago, I met a former Navy guy that I think because of sports and military, it was like in my head that to get back in shape, I had to run and do all these physical
Yeah, that's a
feats,
military thing.
right? And so anyways, having this conversation with him, he's like, do you get a weighted vest and just walk on a treadmill or walk around wherever? And at first, it was hard for me to adjust my brain into just walking, but now I've come to really enjoy it because it's like there's a lot of things that get released in those walks, and you feel much better after walks. And
Very
it's-
cathartic.
Yeah, it's
The reason, in the airborne school and on the 82nd, you run everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in
Airborne
airborne
school.
school, you
Yeah.
run in boots,
Yeah.
which is not the best. So it's
terrible.
You ran so much. To this day, I can't do heavy squats because of my knees. So, which is why I'll never have tree trunk legs. because
I'll tell you now how you
go
get
super
around
heavy.
it.
You know, I can do leg extension, things like that, but heavy squats, my knees, they were so taxed for all those years that I can't do a lot.
So part of what we do in the Lambers Lab, and you guys are well-rounded individual. That's why I watched you on, right? Because you manage all those levels. So we always talk with everybody. What we're trying to give men purpose. And part of that purpose is you've got to have the physical, right? Use your body to its utmost as long as you possibly can every single day. Use it or lose it, right? Spiritual is very important. Whether you're a Christian or you just have a spiritual outlook, you have to get back in touch with spirituality so you can be well-rounded. Meditation, grounding, getting back in touch with consciousness. These are things that are very important, I think, to every person. You know, and then after the spirituality, and you've got this mindset. Right. What is your mindset? Being able to switch to a vegan diet and folks say, you know what, regardless of what happens, we're sticking to this. And then finding the mechanism, that takes discipline.
Sure.
Right. It's not the person who sees a celebrity going vegan, go, I'm going to be a vegan tomorrow, it lasts 2 weeks, and they go, no, it's too hard. It's not the person who gets to the 1st of January goes, okay, new year, new life. And they last for a month and then it's done.
Right.
It's about instilling that, not motivation, but instilling discipline in. How do you guys find balance? Because you've spoken about things, you do water fast, so obviously you've already got a good mindset. You managed to do this, and you've been doing this successfully for years. Your mindset's good. How do you tie in spirituality to that?
Oh, spirituality. Well, Jeremy and I, we see eye to eye when it comes to our belief system in that way. We're both raised Christian. I was raised in a Catholic church. My mom's from England, so she was Church of England, but she converted to Catholicism when I was a kid. And I don't know that we really ever married those thoughts together. And if I don't know if I'm going to speak on your behalf, but I find myself to be more tree huggery spiritual than Jeremy is. Literally today, I went outside in my bare feet and I grounded myself before I went to work. I do that a lot. And actually, I've gotten away from doing it, and it's your beautiful wife who reminded me that I need to do it more.
Very important.
Do it more during the full moon and all those wonderful things. And she's taught my daughter to do that, and I'll be forever in her debt for that. But I don't know that we go to church, we pray, we have the same beliefs when it comes to that. And again, I'm a little bit more, stare at the moon type of spirituality as well. But I don't know that we've ever married those thoughts together.
And I was not raised in a church at all. I mean, the only time
my parents
they weren't
believe in God, and he wasn't raised the same way I was going to church.
They believe in God like most of other Americans believe in God. They go to church on occasion. The only time
for a funeral and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
the only time I went to church as a kid was when my parents got married.
Oh.
My mom and my stepdad.
Okay.
So that's the only time. After that, I was more agnostic.
Yeah.
And then for a time, in my teenage years, I thought I was kind of atheist. I was like, I don't know what to believe. So I was agnostic, and then I was atheist, and then as I grew up and I matured, I realized that there is a God, and we need to embrace that, because to me, we're not just haphazardly traveling this earth. There is a plan for us.
Yes.
And everyone's path is different. And my path was, for all the heartache that me and Danielle both went through in our previous relationships, I firmly believe that there's, God put us in each other's way, because that's where our journey was meant to go. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that you have to trust in, and for everyone it's different. I'm not a firm believer in organized religion, because to me,
we do go to church.
We do go to church.
Yeah.
But I think it's more to pacify you. I mean, because
it makes me feel good. I like going to church.
For me, organized religion is very hypocritical. And they're putting on a front.
Yes.
And for me, having strong faith is not developed in a room with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
It's developed in your heart.
Yes.
And how you have your relationship with God.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with an organization or how they perceive you.
So I would agree with that too. I wouldn't say I don't exist unless I go to church by any means. I mean, we haven't gone to church regularly for a long time.
And then
we just recently started going back into last year because it feels
It's a non-denominational. It's a nice
Yeah.
little.
It's a reminder of my faith that I think in the moment I needed. And honestly,
We like to listen to the music.
and we like their music. My 15-year-old daughter was the one who pushed us to go to church, which is unheard of for teenagers.
There's actually way more kids doing that.
So the pastor told me that. So recently, I was born and raised Catholic. My kids were both baptized Catholic when they were little. But he's not Catholic, and kids don't find Catholic church very riveting. And so let's go to a non-denominational church. So we started going last year. So the 15-year-old says to me a couple of months ago, maybe before Christmas, Mom, what does it mean to be baptized? And so I explained it to her. I said, you were baptized when you were little. And she said, but I didn't choose that. And I said, no, you're right, you didn't. That's kind of how Catholic, it works that way. And I kind of explained that to her. And she said, could I be baptized again if it was my choice? I said, of course you can. There's no rule that says you can be baptized more than once. So she said, I want to be baptized in our church. So I said, that's wonderful. She invited her friends and she got baptized. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I was chatting with the pastor and I hadn't really met him yet. And so we're chatting and he said, how long have you been coming? And what brought you here to our church? And I said, it was my teenager. And he said the same thing. Yeah. It is very common recently. And I think it's because teenagers are trying to find their way.
Purpose has disappeared.
There's not something that they're led to the way that when we were teenagers. It's all likes on Instagram and who Snapchatted me today and who's being bullied in a group text and all this crap.
Yes.
They're trying to find something to believe in.
Well, I don't think it's just teenagers like that. I really relate with what you said, Jeremy. And like, I grew up with extreme religion, and I think a big part of why you probably brought this up in like our podcast, like, having, and you probably relate this to, you spent time in Iraq, like, there's a lot of veterans out there that come back from deployments, from military stuff. Athletes go through this as well, where post-military, post-athletics, you're like, well, now what? Like, what am I training for? What's my life supposed to be about? What am I supposed to do?
Sure.
We're brought up and raised in these pressure-filled, tense ordeal situations, whether it's like pressure from religion, pressure from a private school, which I went to, pressure from sports, which I was a part of.
Oh, so you had all of it.
Oh, yeah. My therapist tells me I'm a perfect disaster. But it's true, right? But I had, I played Division I baseball.
Wow.
Then I go to the military. I have multiple deployments, pressure-filled situation on these deployments. And then post that, I go to a corporate world, very high pressure jobs. And so you find yourself on the backside of all that and you're going, why? Like, why did I do all this? Why did I go through these experiences? What is my purpose? Where am I trying to go? And so I think a big message to Jay, I've really tried to push on these podcasts is like, and even with your stories of like, wait, you guys, whether you know it or not, I think you realize this, but like you're a role model for somebody. You're a role model for the community and the things that you guys have put out there. You figured some things out at your age, right?
Sure.
We're sharing these stories and putting it out there, and I think it's remarkable that teenagers are pushing you to say, "Hey, let's go get some in our life."
We had Robbie on a couple of weeks ago. Robbie Donofrio, he owns Gracie Brand and Jiu-Jitsu. Amazing human being. His story is truly inspiring, and he was for the longest time atheist, right? He didn't believe in anything, and his little girl, right, came to him and started, and that's how he got reintroduced to the church and to God.
My daughter got me going. To be honest with you, like,
How cool is this? Like, we're talking about 3 kids right here that have had adults go back to church, or even just dip your toe back.
We're just like, we drive by a church or something, or I'd ask her if she knew, like, we just have conversations. And she's at 6 years old at that point. I was like,
sweet.
We gotta go to church.
Your kid has to go to church. You take him to church.
And the conversation.
In my head, I kept telling myself, I grew up in church, and not like over the top. But we went to church every Sunday, and it was Catholic, and so I had to go to CCD classes. I had to get my communion, my confirmation, all those things. I had to get married in the Catholic church. I married my first husband, and I love it. Thinking back on it, I'm so glad I have that foundation. But it felt forced, not over the top, but it felt forced.
Yes.
And so I never wanted to force my kids to go to church because I remember not liking the feeling. Like, what am I going to wear? I gotta have a dress, and my dad's going to make a mention about how clean my shoes are and all that stuff. It look good, all that stuff. So I didn't want to put that pressure on them. But it's, we've had these conversations now a few times, letting your kids make these choices. Yes. And it was her choice to come in and tell me. And it was a joke for a long time. On a Sunday, we'd be on our way somewhere and she'd say, we forgot to go to church again, Mom. Mm-hmm. Like, dang, we'll try again next week. And then I realized she's not kidding.
Just
And it's great, I would rather her have an experience like that than to not talk to me about anything at all or spend more time figuring out how she's going to get her next vape or go to a party.
You go to a non-denominational church too, and it's probably the same place, to be honest. But I just like that it's not pressure filled. It's not organized religion. They actually speak to the idea that it's not organized religion. It's about a faith and love for God.
Yes.
And I think what's healthy when it comes to that is like with kids, like I was put in these positions where I felt like I had to do this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I want my kids to make their own choices.
Yes.
I want them to have the information.
I feel it's important that people find, and children especially, I think we've had an overcorrection society.
Yeah.
Because we went from, as you said, as we were kids, as church, you have to go to church.
Yeah.
And my experience with church is when you go into church, like, okay, something's wrong. I'm not allowed to ask questions. I don't sometimes keep quiet. The minute that you are not allowed to ask a free question, you have to question what's happening.
Oh, 100%.
And then that's the separation between organized religion and spirituality. They're not the same thing.
Sure.
Faith is not the same as a church.
No.
And I think you experience too, like for me, after the whole extreme religion that I dealt with, I felt wrong going anywhere else for the longest time. So I had to overcome that.
Yeah.
The first time I went to the non-denominational church here, when we first moved here 10 years ago,
That's not what church is supposed to be. Yeah.
I was uncomfortable. I kept shifting in my seat. Why is the pastor
Which it shouldn't be.
Why is this guy with a guitar and people are wearing jeans and sweatshirts? Like, what? I felt so uncomfortable because it was so
Different.
not what I was used to and different.
Yeah.
And that was ingrained in my mind.
For sure.
I still wore a dress to church that
did you
day.
really?
I was 45 years old, or, because that was you're supposed to do.
Because that's how you were raised.
That's how I was
and
raised.
it's just,
God doesn't care if you're wearing a sweatshirt.
No,
I promise.
That's true.
and again,
That's really great.
God doesn't care if you go to church. He cares
He
about you
doesn't
live
care.
your life.
That's right. He does not care if you go to church.
And I'm not Christian by any. It's I like Elon Musk's take on this. Is I really do align with Christian values, and I think it's very important that church is a part of life.
Sure.
Because I think if you can't find spirituality within yourself without church is a great segue to guide you. Nothing wrong with it. And we talk about it. He talks about it as well as whether you call it God, universe, consciousness, still the same thing.
Yes.
But I find it very interesting how you've seen how there's been this overcorrection because church disappeared and it's actually been demonized for a long time. And, this is why I think you have extreme ideologies because people are looking for something to belong to. So, we see veganism. Okay, great. That's my belong place.
Yes.
It's not really, it's a lifestyle that you're choosing and it should be more than just an ideology. The same thing for everything else. And I feel that children have seen this. It's the same as when television came in. Television comes in, everyone goes, oh, TV's going to take everything over. Yeah, to a point it did, but then we corrected.
Sure.
Phones, social media, same thing. Watching children put those phones down and starting to engage as kids more. I feel adults are way worse on their phones than kids are these days.
100%.
So you're starting to see the overcorrection and finding them getting back to spirituality is very important. And as we find it with the people we help, is you can have a good mindset. You can be an entrepreneur with a great mindset. Why did you do that? Why are you working? Why do we want to own our own businesses? Because inevitably you want love and happiness. Love and happiness isn't found in your business. It's found in your family. It's found in your community. It's found in the people you share time with. And we always emphasize that we look for balance. If you want abundance, physical, make sure physically you're using your body. Mentally, make sure you are strong enough to take that physicality. And then spirituality is super important so that you know why you are doing those two things. So that you have so that you find an overbearing purpose to why life is important to you. So finding, entrepreneurs as yourselves who come from a point of, listen, we made these changes, we made mistakes. We realize we made mistakes. We don't suggest anybody do this, but if you want to try it, we'll help you down the path.
Can I ask you a question? So the health journey that you went through with veganism, you guys are both entrepreneurs. You started a restaurant. That's stressful stuff. Like, how? You have no idea. You don't have an idea. It's probably very difficult. But the question
Kevin used to have a life kind of in restaurants, so he gets it.
Yeah. So, but let me ask you, how did the health journey with veganism help you navigate these hardships and stressors of life and business?
I mean, the good thing is business is stressful, no matter what kind of business you're owning. Unless you're someone who just came into something easy and you made a lot of money, good for you. That's not normally how it works.
Right.
Jeremy's business has been sustained since 1998, so it's been around a long time. And is it stressful?
To be honest with you, I don't really experience stress. I'm very occasionally.
And it's usually like money related for like a day or two, and then it's like, okay, check came and you're all right.
Yeah, my stress level. I've always been very kind of
easy going,
and I've never been one to really have stress or outwardly display stress. Oh, I take that back. If I'm stressful, it comes out as being grumpy.
Yeah,
right.
It's rare,
but it's rare. So
I would never.
For me, there was really no, correlation or hard transition between being an entrepreneur and a business owner and doing something stressful because I just and my business is so easy anyway. I'm so stress free. I'm an architect. What's stressful about that?
Yeah.
Sometimes the customer can piss you off, but it's rare, right? But usually they're pretty like, oh, hail Jeremy's design. That's fine.
Yes.
So the restaurant business is very different.
HGTVs.
In the restaurant business, much different, high stress.
Yes.
But I'm like Jeremy in that I don't really let myself get too stressed.
Yes.
I have been more stressed over the past few years than I ever have, but I still think I'm much less stressed than most restaurant owners because I lean on my faith a lot.
There you go.
And because I lean on whether I worry about it or not, it will have the same result.
Yes.
And I've always felt that way.
That's a good point.
About anything.
But we've also made sure that you're not down there 90 hours a
Not
week.
anymore. I used to be down there, 20 hours a day. And now it's not that way anymore. I have a really great staff and they're in place and we can afford the payroll that we pay them, kind of, so that I don't have to be there as much.
Yeah.
The stress of running it still sits on me. I got to make sure the rent's paid.
You're responsible.
I'm responsible for it. I was actually saying to my sister just yesterday, she was telling me she's having a hard time sleeping. And I said, I never had a hard time sleeping until I owned the restaurant. But I don't outwardly feel stressed, but you can have internal subconscious stress that you can't even talk about because it's just going on inside of you.
It's hard to articulate.
It's hard to articulate it, or you don't even know that you have it, except that like suddenly your heart is racing and you don't know why, or your blood pressure is up and it isn't normally, because stress can still live inside you.
Yes.
Last summer, I had an ulcer, and I've never had an ulcer in my life. And it happened very acutely one day. Like, we had to call 911. We thought I was having a heart attack. It radiated. It was terrifying. And luckily, it was nothing super serious. It was an ulcer. And so we tried to pin down what had caused it because I eat very healthy and I don't, take a lot of medication. What could it be? And my doctor said, it's because you're stressed. I'm like, but I don't feel stressed. He's like, tell that to your mind.
But your body doesn't know
Tell that
that.
to your body. Your body feels stressed.
Yeah.
And so I lean on... in any instance. So going vegan didn't stress me out. In the beginning, it was like, what are we going to eat today? Then it just became easy. Just like whatever it is that you eat or whatever it is that you eat, whatever you get up every day and you put your shoes on, you don't even think about it.
It's part of life.
It just becomes part of life. And so I don't feel like I'm on a diet being a vegan in any capacity. And it's just normal now. Just the same way I brush my teeth. It's the same way I make my lunch. I don't think about it. And so I just can't let myself, because I could get into that terrible dark hole where I obsess over, is my restaurant going to make it? Can I pay my rent this month?
Yeah.
Which helps nothing.
It does not.
Yeah.
Is someone going to leave me a 1-star review? Who's going to come in there today and hold us up at gunpoint? Whatever. You could think of 1,000 things that could go wrong. But today when I left, I went outside and I put my feet in the grass.
And everything was fine.
Everything was fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said out loud, like some crazy lady, today's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
And I believe it in my heart that it will.
At
the end of it, I pray, God, I trust that you will make me have the best day that I'm supposed to have. It's your will. And I got in my car and I drove away.
And I think that's manifesting your reality.
That's one
I don't think
thing.
there's nothing crazy about
And
it.
again, it is a reminder that your wife gave my daughter, which my daughter gave me.
Yeah.
My daughter, Angelina, that she helped recently, has been a atheist agnostic for a long time. When she was 15, she had a friend die. It was very traumatic for her. A year before that, she had a friend whose dad died and left her an orphan, and that was very hard for her, and it made her really angry at God.
Yeah.
I don't know how to talk to someone about grief without talking about God, and she was like, don't talk about heaven with me, Mom. And then I was like, I didn't have anything to say because that's kind of how I was raised, and that's what I believe. And so Helene's reminder to her was, you don't have to believe in God, but you have to believe in something. Spirituality is very important.
Yes.
And so if it's not God, then it's manifestation. It's shifting to a new reality and realm that you believe in, and believe it in your heart, and go outside and put your feet in the grass and believe it. And she's been doing that every day since Helene told her that.
Yes.
It's changed her life. And she reminded me that I needed to do it more often too. And so I've been doing it every day. I made him do it with me.
Because when you become successful, you can kind of get to a point you think I'm okay, and you kind of forget those we always talk, whether it's prayer or meditation, you have to take time out to have a conversation with yourself and the higher being.
Yes, and that's what she's been doing.
Yeah,
Yes.
and grounding is a very important part to get you close to nature. You can actually feel the earth beneath your feet.
Yes.
And we always, especially, we try to tell the people we help is always, the future doesn't exist, the past doesn't exist. All you have is the present.
Yes.
So whatever you're doing right now, no matter what your goals are, the goals will always be great.
Sure.
They don't exist yet.
Adults have a really hard time doing that because we live in the past and in the future.
Yep.
Before the age of 28, when our cognitive brains aren't quite done forming, we live like looking at our feet, right? When you're young and you haven't really finished closing all those parts of your brain. Then something happens one day and you're like, what's going to happen tomorrow? And holy shit, what did I do yesterday? It's going to screw it up.
Yeah.
It's so hard for us to live in today. But grounding reminds you that your feet are literally, you just look at your feet and they're right in the grass.
Yeah, we have this, and I was guilty of this for a long time, where you're like, I gotta have the plan. Where am I going? What am I doing?
God,
Where's my business going to be? What's my career goals look like? What's all that bigger picture? Yeah, and you get so consumed with that you tend to forget about what actually matters of living in the moment. And I was guilty of that for a long time.
And the reason that you have to continually train them, do that every day, is because it's easy when things are good.
Oh, yeah.
But when you can apply that when things are bad, that's when you see the true benefit.
For sure.
I gave a friend some advice recently that he trained with us for just a little bit. We were helping him get him on a meal plan. We get him back on track, and then I think some personal stuff came back up. So he's unfortunately kind of went back away. But anyway, with him, he wouldn't, per our recommendation, we said get some blood work done. Came back not what he wanted to see in the blood work, and I essentially told him, I said, like, and the point is gratitude. I said, you can be upset with yourself about the situation, or you can have gratitude that you actually discovered this.
Sure.
Because the
And
alternative,
the time is right?
and the alternative of not discovering this would be dropping dead of a heart attack, going right to the emergency room, and being in a health situation that you're going to have a really long road to recovery. You find this at a point where you can actually do something about it. So rather than be upset with yourself, have gratitude that you found this, and then wake up each day with gratitude.
Amen.
And I think that's something I've really shifted my brain over the past 12 months, because I've been through a lot in the last 12 months myself. Gratitude changed everything.
Everything.
When you wake up every day sort of with like, hey God, thanks for giving me a breath in my lungs.
It's a good life.
I look at my wife next door, like next to me, and I'm like, wow, I still have her here. My kids are still here. My kids are at a great age. And you just have gratitude for all the things that you get to do each and every day, have these conversations.
Yeah.
Versus all my problems.
I got a lot of problems
We all have
too. We all have them.
But if you have gratitude and using gratitude on a daily basis in that morning routine, it changes everything.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
My friends and family, and maybe even sometimes Jeremy, might be annoyed with me because I will find the positive spin on anything that happens.
Yeah.
Anything we can look at something that's positive out of it. This horrible thing happened. Let's find something in it that we can be grateful for.
Did you say even I might be annoyed by that?
Yeah,
No.
sometimes so.
I love that about you.
Okay, that's good. Because I am a very positive person.
I'm a very positive
Yes.
person. And so
That's why we're not usually, like, Jeremy and I are an anomaly. We've been together, we've been married almost 10 years, we've been together 12, 13 years, and we've really never had any fights.
we've had some uncomfortable conversations.
Like, I don't like the way you did that. But we talk, we're very communicative with each other.
Your wording is already changing it, because you're saying we're not fighting, we're having a disagreement, or we're having a chat. You're also creating a reality. You're both men and women, right? Men tend to side on the side of logic, women on the side of intuition. Any man we
And
wants
emotion.
emotion, I'd say emotions can tie into it, but we all have emotions.
Sure.
But the real fact is, any man who wants to say, oh, well, intuition is bullshit, great, go speak to your mother about when she told you not to do something and she knew.
Broke your arm.
I think intuition is a real thing.
For sure.
And it's
For sure.
finding that completeness between, he likes to call it the divine masculine and the divine feminine. We can find that match between the two and then start realizing that you actually work well together.
Yes.
And not there's nothing to push. And it's the same for in community. The same reason we're having this discussion.
Sure.
We're exactly the same people. Our paths are slightly different.
Sure.
How we choose to take them, but our outcomes are the same. Our ideology is the same. What we want from the world is the same. What we want for everyone else is the same.
That's right.
And those are the important parts of having these conversations. So I'd like to end off with some words from you guys for entrepreneurs, because we want to help entrepreneurs as much as possible find that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yep.
What advice would you guys give to someone who's starting a new business, going in, you guys are both successful in the businesses you're running? What advice would you give them?
I'll tell you some advice that someone gave me. Actually, I think I've read it somewhere before I opened the restaurant, which is one of the most terrifying businesses you can open. Mm-hmm. And I want to say so badly don't, but I won't, because if it's your journey, it's your journey.
Yeah.
Everyone told me not to do it. And if I could go back in time, I would still do it. And it's been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah. But I read somewhere, jump and the parachute will appear.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that.
And I had no freaking idea what I was doing. I really faked it.
Yeah.
And I hired people that I thought could give me advice and help me. And I screwed up a lot.
You were relying on the other people.
Yes.
Made some mistakes.
I still screw up. We're 2.5 years in. I still screw up. Forgive yourself and be kind to yourself. Allow yourself grace. You are a human being. You're going to mess up. It's never going to be perfect. One day you'll get it down and hopefully you'll make a buck. And I hope that and wish that and pray that for you if you want to make that your journey. But life is about taking risks, and life is about having fun. If you're doing something you're not having fun, then you probably should be doing something else. Mm-hmm. The restaurant is very hard, and every day I hope we make it. But every day when I show up there, I'm still having fun. Yes. I don't dread being there. I love being there. And I've never made $1. I've never made $1. In fact, I've lost all the dollars. Yeah. And I still love it. I pull up and I park in this little parking spot and I look and I say, that's mine. And I walk in there and I see a regular customer and I see a new person and I see my staff smiling and I smell the food and I'm ready to eat something and I'm going to have a coffee and I feel so happy. And so if you don't feel that happiness when you're pulling into your business or you're sitting at your desk at work, then you need to find something else to do.
Good advice. Find your happiness.
And he's been in business a long time, so I'm a new entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, I started this business around 1999 because I'd worked for people and realized I could do it better. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And so when we came to Florida, obviously in 2015, we'd moved from Virginia. I'd come down here just to kind of check out there to see if it was possible for me to transplant my very successful architectural business from Virginia to here. And after a couple of months, I was like, this is great. We need to move to Florida. I think we can do this. He was still working in corporate America. It wasn't until 2018 that she had made a decision. She wanted to leave corporate America and come work for my business. And I was like,
I just knew I could make it better.
Well, yeah. And I didn't believe that. And so, because she was making 6 figures, and I was like, honey, if you quit your job and just subtract 6 figures from our income, that's going to sting a little bit.
Yeah.
And like PTO and,
Yeah, I mean, because I told her, I said, look, you can come on board, but just so you know that the paychecks are not consistent. Sometimes you're going to work.
That's a big understatement.
Sometimes you're going to work 80 hours a week, but you might not get paid for a month or two. Yes. That's just how it works. You have to understand that. I understand that I've been an entrepreneur all my life. You coming from the corporate world, you have to change your mindset.
I'm the opposite. I've always worked for someone.
Yeah.
The day after my 16th birthday, I got my first job, and I've worked on someone's payroll ever since.
And so, coming from that corporate world to the entrepreneurial world, you have to change your mindset. You have, because it's not for everybody. You have to be entirely driven and ambitious and understand that you got to put in all those hard hours and blood, sweat, and tears before you start to even make some money. Right? But once you get to that point, it's so fulfilling because you created something from nothing. And not everybody has that. She didn't know she had it until she came to join me. And then she changed my business processes. we made I remember she left her corporate job and she knew she had to succeed so much that she had to make up for her lost income. She took this, it's called Ignite Your Business.
Yeah, it's a business course.
It teaches you how to network and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Her first month that she came on board, she replaced her salary 2.5 times
Wow.
Nice.
because she knew she had
Well, I just wanted to prove him wrong. So let's
wanted-
go
well,
there.
Yeah, she wanted to prove that she could jump in to my business and make it work,
Make
and
a
that
difference.
we weren't going to miss her income.
Yeah.
And so,
And then I grew his business by 600% the first year.
yeah, but to her point that she made earlier, jump and the parachute will appear.
Yeah.
That's what happened. She took that leap of faith.
Okay, well, I twisted his arm.
I didn't have that much faith in it because I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I'm like,
You know what it takes.
And it's going to sting if we don't, if it doesn't work out.
But she took that leap of faith and she jumped in she jumped in with both feet. She was so driven and ambitious, and she's like a sponge. Before joining my company, she didn't even know how to spell architect.
Without spell check, that's true.
And so now, when she talks to people, for the longest time, they thought she was the architect.
Actually, I told someone recently that I wasn't an architect. They were like, this whole time they've known me
Yeah.
since I began in like
they thought-
networking.
they
They
thought
thought I was the architect.
Because
It was someone when I visited you guys. Who was that?
she started going to the network meetings and doing my consultations. And then before long, she was doing all the consultations.
He was never leaving his office.
She was having all those conversations. So she really knew what it took. And that's my whole point is know what you're getting into when you jump into it, because it's going to take a lot of effort.
You have
and
to work. You
time.
have to be able to work hard. And not be scared of
Yeah.
working hard. Like
That's
to
right.
his point.
Yeah.
My personality, I don't care about winning. I'm not really that way, but I do care. I don't like when someone doubts me.
Yes.
Then I tend to want to do it more so to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not going to say I proved you wrong. you'll know because
Yeah.
I will have done
You
well.
want to show your actions.
Right. So when I was 18 and I graduated high school, I was thinking about joining the army, but I was too short and I was too fat. So they wouldn't take me. And my dad was in the army 30 years. And so he was so excited that I was going to go to the army, and that didn't work out. And he says, you have to go to college because that's what everybody tells you. You have to go to college.
Yeah.
College just wasn't for me. I'm just not into it. I tried for a year and it just wasn't my thing. And so my dad, who had a master's degree, and I'm the opposite, where a lot of people say, oh, I'm the first person in my family to graduate college.
He was a retired colonel. So
Yeah. He had very high expectations for all of us.
Yeah.
Not in like a horrible way, just in I'm going to have successful kids,
Yeah.
Everybody in my family has a degree. Everybody. My grandmother had 18 grandchildren. Every one of them has a degree except me. And so my dad told me, honey, no matter how hard you work, no matter how smart you are, you will never really succeed unless you have a degree. I've been a hiring manager for, he retired in the 90s, and he told me, I've been a hiring manager all these years, and I won't hire someone, I won't even look at their resume if they don't have a degree. And so he told me, you're going to end up working at a diner. That's what he told me. And he wasn't being mean. He was being funny, but he meant it. And I remember thinking, that's bullshit. I'm just going to work my ass off.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 30, I made $100K a year with no
Nice.
degree. I just worked really hard. And so when I wanted to leave corporate America because I saw a need in Jeremy's company for my expertise, it took me 6 months to wear him down. Not quite, maybe 4 months. Hey, can I quit my job and just come and work with you full time? Honey, are you crazy? We're never going to make it. You make a lot of money, and we need it. Okay. Then I'd wait.
Well, it's because Bella Vita was fairly new.
Yeah, it was
in
new in
Florida.
town. That's right.
And so we were still trying to grow.
He was a solopreneur for 18 long years, just by himself, doing everything, answering the phone, doing consultations, designing the houses, doing the contracts, paying the bill, all of it. And so I kept asking him, and there was this doubt in his voice. And so a friend of ours opened her own brick and mortar. She's a catering company, and Jeremy designed this cute little like Eden and whatnot. And so we went to her grand opening, and she tells a story about how she wanted to quit her job and be a full-time caterer. Her husband wouldn't let her, and like not until the time was right. And then one day he said to her, you know what? Let's just take the leap of faith and do it. So we got in the car from that. He said, you should put your resignation in tomorrow. And I was like, I wore him down. But I knew I had to prove to him that I could replace my salary. And I knew, just like I had to prove to my dad I could make it by not going to college. And I didn't want our family to starve, obviously. I am not afraid of hard work. I love working hard. And so I did just that. I just jumped, like you said, I jumped in with both feet and I grew our business. And it was going so well until I opened a restaurant.
Yeah. Hey, let's open a restaurant.
I was lucky because Jeremy's business was very established when I joined it. It had been around for 20 years. And so someone who's opening a new business and you don't have this history like I did, and Jeremy, to teach me how to be an entrepreneur, if you don't have that, then you had to listen to this first part of your question, which was me starting from scratch.
Right. Yeah.
Vine Vegan was my baby, was my brainchild, was my leap of faith. And will it work out long term? I'll be really honest, probably not. I mean, will we be open another year in this economy?
It's a business,
it's not looking great. But I don't regret it. I would do it over again. I've learned more about myself in the last 2 years that I have my whole life. I've experienced it. I've loved it. And I've blood, sweat, tears, all that stuff. I haven't made any dollars. And luckily I have this to fall back on. So my last sage advice is like, have a backup plan, have a succession plan, have a contingency plan, because it may not go well. Don't beat yourself up. Have some grace. It'll be okay. It will all be okay. It will always be okay.
It's God's plan.
That's right.
And my takeaway from that is the one thing I really do take from that is you never gave up.
No.
So thank you so much for coming on. That was a great conversation. So much insights on what you guys do.
That was
we'll
good.
definitely be coming to have some food at Vine Vegan. I'll film that, put that on this as well. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you. It's been awesome.